Alright then, so let's therefore have a look on the freshly released test version of the Voobly Balance Patch 6.0 and what kind of changes they have therefore cooked up and what they think is something that's gonna be worthwhile to take care of. This has been done by some kind of group of supposedly expert players, not entirely certain who is actually like the part of it. Looks like it's gonna be, not besides Boyd obviously, should be like Husksape, probably Shadowfax, Rappel, Grassing Room supposedly, and who was there actually elsewhere? Some other people, not entirely certain at this point, but nonetheless, some idea of who's gonna be actually working on that. And let's therefore go through with what we are gonna be therefore seeing what they're gonna be trying to do. I'm entirely right now certain about the structure. I'm thinking that maybe you're just gonna be going through the changes now, and maybe after I'm gonna be adding some like my thoughts, what I'll be thinking that maybe could be done, or general thoughts about maybe the process a bit, possibly. But I guess it's gonna be probably permeating through kind of like the whole part and thing anyway, considering what we're gonna be probably having to talk about. No, and there has been at least some kind of partial explanation going on RTS Sanctuary, but in my opinion, very insufficient. And some of the things are a bit of an enigma at this point, at least to me personally, what exactly and why exactly they are actually being tackled, and also others why they are not being tackled. But nonetheless, let's go through that and have some kind of idea therefore. Okay, so what are we right now having for the maps? Gold Rush is, in my opinion, a great map. I was already saying that during the Voobly Champions League 3. It's a pretty nice one. Spawns fairly regularly and reliably, though it is definitely something that's gonna be probably a bit annoying for Egyptians, because it's harder for them logically, considering where the golds are and everything. On the other hand, it might be a map where they might be kind of successful with 1TC Fasty Heroic, especially, for example, I think that Isis might be good there. If she's gonna be able to pull off some 715 fast heroic, dropping Migdol into midst slightly, she might be actually having something there. But well, nobody was playing that in the tournament, so up in the air if that's gonna be making sense. Otherwise, nothing else. It seems like with the maps, I'm still holding that Frozen Waste should be reverted to how it was before, that the 5.0 change is a mistake with the safe gold mines, because it's completely removing the identity of the map and just kind of like making it bit of a weird clone of other maps. So yeah, but that's kind of like my idea. I'm all for new maps, and that's also why I therefore do not like even some kind of thoughts that lately seem to be flying around that some maps should be a lot more standardized. And no, at that point, well, just gonna say it out loud. You want to be playing Martian Tundra and Savannah and Blue Lagoon maybe in all the maps, and that's all you want to be playing. So play random land map with limited maps and you're gonna be happy, I guess. But really, with the asymmetric approach, asymmetric design that we have of the civilizations, it really should be supported by wildly different maps. So I'll be going into a territory of basically completely no hunt maps, maps that are gonna be having different amount of TCs. I'll be really going all the way. And at least it will be quite nicely showcasing some possible balance issues and things that are maybe slightly under the radar or not understood well by the players. So yeah, I think it will be really helping the game overall. But yeah, we kind of do know how it works with the maps usually. So getting at least the Gold Rush in is gonna be thinking nice, because it's a very specific one. But I'm thinking that the complaints are gonna be quick to come as well for that one. Quite a bit possibly. So the actual balance changes coming forward. And also, by the way, as you were talking before, of the change to the rain, so that it doesn't affect actually wood gatherers fora, that is implemented, as far as I remember, through the map scripts. I think it was done so that we don't have to be releasing a new patch completely and therefore invalidating recorded games and stuff. So unless it was somewhat changed into the normal patch, it's something that probably should be added as a proper fix through the protocs and whatnot, and not through the maps themselves in here. But whatever the case, let's therefore head into the balance changes therefore themselves. As for the Greeks, therefore, we are going to be having Odysseus and Hippolyta removing range in Classical. It was a bit unexpected to me, but in the end, is it gonna be really completely changing the gameplay? No, a bit. It's gonna be slightly helping second TCs, because it's gonna be, no, well, maybe like a few seconds more taken to actually arrive at the TC and start shooting. But this is gonna be having very interesting consequences, and that is that you're gonna be having better precision for the heroes, because the higher range you have in Age of Mythology, the less precision you have for the unit, the better chance you're gonna be missing on especially the first hit. It's absolutely evident. For example, in the previous game, you have just like clearly seen the split of like 5 charioteers shooting at one target at a 20 range, 2 hit and 3 were completely off. So that's kind of what I'm talking about here. So this is kind of like low-key helping precision. So I'm not entirely certain if that's appreciated. No, and another part is that this is gonna be actually a bit of a maybe problem against specifically Stymphalian birds, for example, or even rocks potentially. Because, of course, Greeks are staying in Classical Age for a lot longer than others, because Heroic Age is their age, the kind of weakest age. So you're gonna be commonly seeing that Atlantean and the Greek, or what is it, Egyptian, the Ra, is gonna be, of course, a long time in the Heroic Age, using the flyers. No, and you are going to be still stuck in the Classical Age. Not stuck, you're just gonna be wanting to play there because it's simply making sense for you with like extra TC and stuff. So I'm kind of wondering if this is also appreciated. It's gonna be making it a lot more annoying to fight against Stymphis. And they already are always annoying to play against. It doesn't matter what kind of civilization you are. They are always really strong. No, and well, then the Rock Raiden is gonna be potentially slightly more dangerous to you. Is that something that you want? I mean, like, all I'm hearing is all the time everybody complaining about Rock Raiden, that it's broken and that it should be like, a lot of people want to be even removing the free rock. So, I don't know, is this consequence understood here? In favor of, like, well, it's kind of like a logic in that. I mean, like, sure, the heroes are really strong in Classical, so practically Myth unit and 2 heroes is usually a fairly solid army that can be standing its own. And therefore, it kind of helps with facilitating second TC for the Greek, because he's gonna be fine with that kind of army. But in the end, is this going to be actually enough of a change in there? I don't know. I'm kind of actually slightly wondering if really increased accuracy is not gonna be kind of like negating this slightly. I'm thinking that the range is gonna be a bit more important, that it shouldn't be entirely equal, that the precision is not gonna be as bad of an increase. But it's kind of just like curious, and it really makes me wonder with some of the other changes below if actually the decisions are really understood as far as the design of the game. I'm already gonna be spoiling it. I'm having a very strong feeling that not. That is basically like a series of ideas that are simply that, like a single ideas, but without context, kind of. But well, nonetheless, this is not entirely something that's gonna be too problematic. Sure, if they want to test it, I don't think it's gonna be really that much of a problem in general. Oh yeah, it's gonna be definitely to kind of like slightly lower the power of the double hero plus the myth unit. It's actually kind of strong. So yeah, but no, nonetheless, it's having interesting consequences down the line. Greek scout damage, of course, originally it was completely removed, which was frankly, in my opinion, kind of obscene. It seemed to be completely out of nowhere. I've never heard anybody complaining about that, really. And frankly, this is a bit of a funny thing also as well, because Scout has started to be used actively only like maybe 2 years ago max. Before that, for 20 years, practically almost nobody used that, and everybody thought that Kataskopos is completely useless, right? No, and suddenly somebody therefore figures out, hey, it's actually those 2 damage, even though it's small, it's actually at least something and helps here and there. So that's, yeah, a bit interesting. No, but whatever the case, what is right now the reasoning for this change? That's kind of like what I'm really missing here, a reasoning for the changes, because plenty of them, I'm just really not sure what they're even aiming for in the first place, and for what kind of reason. Which is something that with the previous patches wasn't really that much of a case. With most of the changes, you kind of knew what was being targeted, and for like why really. There was a lot of discussion, and these seem to be kind of changes that practically come out of nowhere, kind of. Not being really tackled anywhere, talked about too much. I don't know, maybe on some places they were. But whatever the case, right now this heading into 0 is just like, I don't think I even need to be talking about it, what kind of complete nonsense that is. Because you'll be then suddenly leaving Greeks with absolutely kind of like no chance to defend against something like set conversions of the animals, you wouldn't be able to do any kind of like slight abuse of anything. Greek is gonna be just like completely abused himself, because he won't be able to defend with anything at all. So therefore it would be Loki helping maybe Zeus in certain situations. He could be, of course, bolting or whatnot. But yeah, that was a strange choice. That one I don't really understand where it's coming from. I can imagine that this is supposed to be basically helping exactly Set and maybe Isis. I would be surprised if this is not coming from Egyptian players. But yeah, that complete removal of the damage is quite a bit extreme. And from what I have seen, some kind of like general ideas about why it's done and why not. Let's gonna read that. I think there was something posted by Boyd in one of those explanatory thingos. There we go. So what did he say here? Feels that they missed. Okay. Too much value early game in shutting down enemy scouting without any real counterplay or consequence. Like, really? I mean, like, you are having to sacrifice your own scouting to do that. Like, really, you have to. If you want to be killing, for example, the Set Priest, that means you have to be wasting, like, good 50 seconds of your time of scouting early game. So, you have to be sacrificing your own scouting to shut down the enemy one. So that's a very strange explanation at this point. Lowering the DPS, and this should mean that Greek players need to make the decision whether they want to scout themselves or attempt to shut down enemy scouting due to the time. In case something being doubled. Like, if you want to be forced, if you kind of feel that they don't have to be making enough of a choice between those two, then make a logical thing. Lower the speed of the scout. Because if you lower his speed, you're gonna be way more forcing him to choose what to do. If he wants to be running around and getting some fog of war explored, or if he's gonna be wanting to spend the time disrupting the set, I mean, like, slightly annoying the Ulfsag, which, by the way, all the people are capable of defending against. They're just gonna be making the 3 wall chips, and Kataskopos can't be doing too much against that, other than wasting his time, practically. Or you have the classic 2 Ulfsag builds, of course, for the Norse, and Heinemonum. So this feels to me very strange and coming out of nowhere, kind of. This has to be some kind of specific PTSD experience from somebody and making it through. This feels kind of slightly random. But like reduction to 1, I guess we can maybe see if it's gonna be working out or not. But like complete removal was, I'm not afraid to say, straight stupidity, and I'm really wondering how that came through. So if somebody feels offended over the team from that, then yeah, I don't care. Because if you are having such an idea and it passes through, then that already questions everything else and your whole work. Sorry about that, but it really does. That one is very wild, but we'll see what happens with the one, at least in there. It's gonna be at this point meaning that you're gonna be having quite a bit of a problem stopping the set, by the way. Because as with the 2 damage, you'll be basically, he's having what, almost like 100 hit points, right? And he's having no melee resistance practically. So you'll be killing him in 45 seconds or whatever, 50. Then now it's gonna be taking you minute and a half, minute 40, I don't know. Which is quite a long time. But it of course also means, therefore the set is gonna be able to convert practically like no problem. And he's gonna be getting himself the animal that he's converting. And that animal will be killing the Kataskopos. So effectively this is gonna be very similar to not having any kind of damage at all there. So yeah, I'm thinking this is gonna be having quite a negative effect on the game, because also the Kataskopos was helping on blocking potentially second TCs. Right now with 1 damage he's not gonna be doing anything at all, because again the increase in the time is just like way too major. And with the 2 damage, he was actually a bit of a help to the heroes to shut down the 2 TCs, which, well, until this patch of changes came out, was, in my opinion, what everybody complained about that should be tackled. And somehow, well, you're gonna be making it through that quite a lot easier against the Greeks. No, well, nonetheless, that's gonna be there for one change. That is very controversial and, in my opinion, for a very good reason. So if you wanted to be forcing the opponents to choose, and I'm still thinking they already do have to be choosing right about now still, then really I'm thinking that they need to be touching the speed, just like decreasing the speed, and that's gonna be immediately forcing the player to choose what he wants to be doing, if he's already seen enough or not. Otherwise, having just like a scouting unit without damage, when you have Ulfsarks on the other side, or Skrelings, you have priests or pharaohs, and then you have oracles that can be turning into heroes, you will be just having Greek without any kind of damage. No, well, it's not entirely seeming all that making sense within the balance actually setting of the game. But whatever the case, Hades, that is a bit of a, like a small elephant in the room that was expected to be, of course, touched, as plenty people are, and were complaining about that. And I'm kind of thinking that the biggest problem with Hades, again, is gonna be going back to the 2TC strategy. That is actually uniquely set up for that, and with the safer maps that are, or kind of more reliable maps, this is a dangerous combination with the extra hit points and also the fact that he's good with archers, which don't have to be moving anywhere too much. There's just like so many things going together that are basically securing him in a thirdly position that is gonna be impossible to get dislodged from, and he doesn't even have to be moving anywhere too much, because as opposed to Egyptians that have to be moving for the second gold by 10 minutes, no, Greek doesn't have to be doing that at all. He has to be moving on the second gold mine where, I don't know, 13, 14 minutes, maybe 15. The gold is really not entirely that much of a problem for the Greek, and that's why also this is a whole lot more kind of comfortable spot for the Hades to be in. So I'm thinking that Shades, or the Shades, sorry, Shades have been a lot of talk that I have heard that people want to be nerfed, so it's not surprising too much. But I don't think they're actually the real problem here. I don't think they are the real problem behind Hades' strength. The first nerf that just, in my opinion, this is not doing anything. This is cosmetic practically. This one is much more important. This is much more relevant, actually, a nerf. That you're gonna be getting less of them instead of 20%. No, well, this is what, some 17 or whatever, which is actually not entirely that much of a difference, right? That is 17, is it? I guess. No, 16.5, 17% approximately. It feels that it's gonna be probably too small of a change, because kind of the problem is, again, not entirely the rate. The problem is if it kind of all works together. That means if you are getting lucky and you get suddenly, I don't know, 5, 7 shades in a row, and suddenly you are having spike, that is a problem. So this is gonna be changing very little in that, in my opinion. Maybe, no, it's gonna be removing like one kind of stupid chance from like 10 that are gonna be otherwise working anyway. So it's some kind of help in not entirely bad spot, in my opinion, for that. But I'm kind of thinking this is not gonna be necessarily doing enough. And I'm really thinking this is not touching Hades where he is actually the problematic. I think this is kind of missing the point a bit. And at the same time, this is also very interesting to be having this being tackled and considered a problem here by the patch team. And at the same time, it's absolutely fine to be having, exactly as you say, Elon, having the Loki spawns, or for example, mercenaries, right? And those are not gonna be touched. So that's very interesting to me, that for Hades, for some reason, it actually is a problem, and for the others, it isn't. So, I'm kind of slightly seeing maybe some kind of favoritism, let's say. Because, again, I never kind of thought that Shades are the biggest problem with Hades. Sure, it's a free unit, and it's not a bad free unit. So it is annoying, I can understand definitely that, but really, it's the extreme cases. So decreasing the chance is the correct way to go there. Though maybe you could be wanting to go in a different direction, but I'm not really certain if you can do that. I'm actually almost leaning on the fact that you can't, and that would be limiting the amount of shades. That you could be having like 5 max, for example. That would be probably making a lot more sense, because that's targeting what, in my opinion, is the problem. If you get too many of them in a row, and too soon. So yeah, at which point they become almost like mercenaries for free, practically. That is, of course, not entirely great thing to live through. No, next one, Huron buff revert. Again, I would be kind of liking to see the reasoning for that. Yeah, I've definitely heard a lot of kind of talk that Huron is a bit strong. But 5.5 speed is, by the way, not entirely too extreme. That's the same as Hippicon. It is the same as an upgraded Kentaur, for example. Spearman is what? Like 5.5, or how much is it? Gonna be having to start the game so that I have Tech 3 at this point available. So that I can have in some proper numbers. I'm also gonna be needing it for other things, so let's do that. So this one I'm not entirely certain. Some small nerf possibly could be helping in a similar fashion as Odysseus and Hippolyta with the decreased range. So yeah, it's gonna be slightly easing up, I guess, on the early power of those. At the same time, it's gonna be, again, making it harder for Hades to possibly stop second TCs, but at the same time, Hades gonna place for them anyway in the first place. So could be saying that lately people have learned to be playing also with Athena rushes practically with him. But yeah, I'm thinking that's probably the aim there. Okay, where do we have Tech 3? There we have Tech 3. No, and now I kind of forgot completely what I wanted to be, of course, looking at again at this point. Spearman speed, actually, I wanted to be seeing. It's like 5, but I'm not sure if it's 5 straight or +5. Yeah, it's straight 5. Okay, in there. It's gonna be putting it in some kind of row or line. And Turma is how much, by the way? Turma is, for example, 5 speed as well. So it's gonna be kind of bringing her a bit closer in there. And for Mythionis, he's gonna be chasing. Stymphalion is, of course, right now at only 4, practically 396 or 3.6. So that's gonna be, again, basically like very similar effect, interestingly. Like with Odysseus and Hippolyta. Potentially making it harder to deal with typically Stymphalion birds and also with rocks slightly. So hopefully this is understood on both of these changes. That is gonna be probably becoming a bit more annoying to play against. But otherwise, I guess, sure. Not entirely really too controversial here. Now for Poseidon, Lore of the Horses, that is a significant discount, and that's something I was already mentioned even on stream fairly commonly, that it's a bit overpriced for what it does, even though LOS, I'm always praising that it's a great thing. For 150 food, it's a bit extreme for the early classical game for Poseidon. It's not entirely something that you are wanting to always pay, and it's gonna be usually kind of like the last thing that you're gonna be doing. Maybe even increasing the size, that maybe it's better visible. What I'm having as a bit of a problem is the decrease in favor cost, in my opinion. The food, absolutely, but the favor I'm not entirely all that certain about, because this is gonna be almost making it practically like an insta-get. And at that point, you might be almost giving it to the horses for free, even though they are decreasing the loss in there by 1. Still, it's kind of becoming into maybe just like a bit too easy to get. I'll be reducing the food and the favor. Maybe if you want to make it cheaper, maybe like 5 favor, just not going that extremely low. So that you have to be making at least some kind of effort for that, and it's basically not like an insta-click. Because, I mean, like at that point, it's a bit of a weird thing. And you can just kind of give it as a free bonus for Hermes, I guess. Polyphemus, like, not sure what this is spurred by. Like, not like Polyphemus is that much of a problem. I mean, like, I've heard some people sometimes complain about it, but I don't think it's entirely founded in any kind of real thing. Maybe some kind of mem actually problems. But whatever. This was added in the patch anyway, so not like this is gonna be changing anything. No, I'm gonna be probably going back to Poseidon, because I'm thinking I haven't a thought about lure, so I'm having some notes I'm gonna be probably going through after, but I'm gonna be mentioning it later. For Ege, Meteor 3 changes, or charges, sorry. 900 crush, 100 hack, hits where you click, 3-second cooldown. Reduced maximum damage versus villages due to it being reset by a charge. Each charge kills around 2-3 villages. This is a very strange change and very against the Age of Mythology design, so I'm not really liking it at all, what they have done with that. And this is, in my opinion, much more importantly, not like the correct way how to tackle the meteor problem. For example, what has been suggested a long time is the fact that meteor is having as valid targets trees. So therefore it's gonna be looking even for trees to hit instead of buildings and units. So maybe just gonna removing that could be even enough to make meteor a lot better. Against what they did in Extended Edition, because in Extended Edition, if I'm not mistaken, they did basically like a meteor swarm, literally, that you are having so many meteors coming down, if I'm not mistaken. I'm against that. What we were talking about is decreasing kind of like the range of meteor. That to be, of course, having therefore logically better chance to hit what you needed to hit. Or simply increasing the damage, because it's like, why not? It really is underwhelming God power in general. But sometimes it can be pretty good. But it's kind of tying also into another part, and that is that players are not good at using God powers. Yeah, there I said it. Even expert players are bad at using God powers to their full abilities. And if you are, because this ties to even this kind of God power, if you have God power that is known to be bad, you still want to be kind of like improving the chances that it's gonna be hitting what you want and doing some damage. So therefore, where do you not cast meteors? No, you're not gonna be casting it on a single TC with no buildings around it, because you are having practically zero chance to do even half hit point damage to the TC. You're gonna be hitting with the first one, maybe lucky second, and that's it. So you just don't cast it there and complain that the God power sucks. No, you find a base, you find place where you have plenty of buildings, and therefore, even if it's gonna be flying everywhere, you're still gonna be doing good damage with it. That's how you maximize probabilities, chances. Basically, this is like part of poker or, I don't know, any kind of card game like, I don't know, Hearthstone, whatever like that. You're just gonna maximize your probabilities of success. And don't just gonna like play it suboptimally and then complain that it sucks. That is like a stupid approach, right? So I'm really thinking this is a bit extreme change and just like not entirely liking exactly where they're going with it. Because currently you're gonna be having practically the first target that is hitting always where you cast it, and 3 times, no, basically like immediately. So this is having some kind of like potential. For example, I can see some combination with earthquakes or whatever. You're gonna be having earthquake, which is gonna be damaging a big area in team game, and then you're gonna be having meteor to basically like finish the buildings that you need to get rid of. So you're gonna be getting rid of TC, fortress, 2 military academies, or whatever like that. So this is having potential to be also abusable, but well, that's kind of like the whole point of Age of Mythology God powers, to be abusable, especially in team games, to be honest. So I'm thinking this is extreme measure to what, in my opinion, didn't need to be done. And I'm kind of guessing this is gonna be, I'm not entirely certain also if this is aiming to improve Thoth, or if this is supposed to be only making meteors better. But if you're gonna be only making meteors better, is that really why you want to be getting therefore then Thoth? No, I don't think so. This is also another change that I'm not entirely certain if it's properly understood why it's done. And that's why I would be really loving to have the explanations on that. Because really, if this is supposed to be helping Thoth, this doesn't do it. You're not gonna be taking it because of the meteors. You are not taking Thoth because Osiris is damn busted if you're gonna be playing as Isis. And then Tornado is also pretty damn good if you're gonna be playing with Set. That's also quite a bit of a great help in there, and also the secondary upgrades there. But nonetheless, I'm not entirely certain if this is gonna be tilting. Maybe with the Set, this could be helping out, as it will be there for somewhat similar, possibly to that Tornado. By the way, this is gonna be having also interesting implication for Titan Gates, by the way, so it would be kind of funny if this turned Thoth into like a must-have in team games to block Titan Gates, because you are gonna be theoretically having 2700 damage against a Titan Gate where you can cast it exactly where you want. And in the end, probably Tornado is gonna be still more interesting for that. No, nonetheless, not entirely certain what is the aim, if it's only meteors or Thoth. Thinking that That's also something that would be nice to understand here. Now, well, whatever the case, you can say now Anubite recharge time 5 to 10. This is something that is very strange to me. Because, yeah, people complain about Anubis constantly and Anubite ratings. No, and then what happens? Nobody plays Anubites, right? Because nobody plays Isis, nobody plays really Set too much. So, is that really like a legit problem? I don't know. So if you're gonna be having it in competent hands, like for example, Joe is kind of famous for that, it can be pretty annoying to be facing the Anubites, jumping around. But in reality, like where do players even kind of meet that? Because like nobody does it too much. So this is a strange change out of nowhere. I'm not entirely like against that because you can really do a lot of nonsenses with it. The recharge time is really extremely small. But I'm thinking it's also small for a good reason, because that is exactly what Ensemble Studios wanted the unit to be doing. Because if you look at the damage that you do from the special attack, it's practically the same as normal damage of the Anubites. So the special is literally the jump. That is literally the special ability of the Anubite, not any kind of damage tied to it. So yeah, you're just gonna be kind of removing the gimmick of the unit. And 10 seconds is already quite a bit of a long time. And I'm not entirely certain if this is not gonna be completely killing it. This is, I think, in very tight opening to be threading when it's gonna be still useful and when it's gonna be basically becoming useless. I'm slightly afraid that maybe this could be too much, but in the end, don't entirely have that much of a big problem with trying to touch that. Though it feels a bit random to me. It doesn't seem like an acute problem. But whatever. No, Isis Obelisk right now costing 5 gold less. Again, if this is like the only change for Isis that is supposed to be making her better, and is therefore more picked, no, call me unconvinced. What is right now actually the discount? Isis is having discounted obelisks already as a special bonus, right? Obelisks are costing -5 gold in 5.0 patch. So at this point it's gonna be further 5 minus therefore, or so therefore -10. Normal obelisk is how much? 15? Or how much is it? Yeah, 15 gold. So at this point you're gonna be therefore having obelisk for 5 gold. Isis is legitimately the only one who's gonna be making obelisks, so that's of course the only god that's gonna be tackling that. You're gonna be making maybe 10 obelisks, so you're gonna be saving 50 gold maybe. Is that like enough of a change to help Isis something? I mean, like it's gonna be facilitating easier TC. You are still having of course the prosperity in there, so you already are gonna be swimming in gold. I'm kind of would be again like in the justification for that. I mean like the aim for it. What is exactly supposed to be the difference? Like how much does it change the build order for Isis? I'll be like really liking to see that. I'm not saying that it's not gonna be changing enough, but I'll be liking to see the specific change to the build order. Because that's the only thing that's gonna be relevant here for the Isis. If it allows her to be having like 1 less villager on gold or advancing 1 villager faster, I don't know. Something like that, maybe. Feels kind of weird. Isis is not really weak god. She just kind of like, I don't know. Seems like Simplera is better and more popular. So that's kind of like a bit of a problem for her. And Isis's shtick has always been 1 TC fast heroic that nobody plays. So yeah, that's I'm thinking that actually Isis's problem is the prevalence of the 2 TC play, which is not entirely her biggest forte, or rather it's much stronger for the mentioned Ra. So that's why, in my opinion, she's not popular. I don't think she's really bad. She is having good kind of like matchups as well. She's of course gonna be breaking Atlanteans because ancestors, siege towers and priests is still working, and really gloriously. Every time I see it, those few times that we do, no matter who is on each side of the matchup, Isis always wrecks with pre-siege. On the Atlantean, it doesn't matter which one of it is. It's gonna be Oranos or not. So this is a bit kind of random. I'm entirely certain what it's supposed to be achieving. Again, will be like an explanation on that. But in the end, no problem really too much. That 50 gold, if it's maybe gonna be allowing something for Isis to do that, but just can't imagine what necessarily. Maybe giving you a bit more gold on farm, possibly. Sure. No, nonetheless. Odin. Great Hunt, 750 food to 600 food. This is a bit of a funny change in general, because this is having a lot of context to it. And I'm fairly certain also not appreciated by the creators of the patch. So this is not something I'm against, because Great Hunt is really a powerful god power. Kind of like the point here is actually way more powerful than even players are realizing. And if you are maybe a bit more commonly on my stream, you're gonna be hearing me talk about it, because it is used inefficiently by all the players practically. Typically, they're just gonna be casting it on Hunt in your base, and then they're gonna be gathering the full Hunt on the base, and then moving outwards, which is practically wasting half of the power of the god power. Because what you are supposed to be doing is practically gathering the normal amount of Hunt that you will be having, leaving the rest there from the god power, normally go outside, and when you're gonna be getting raided and having to fall back, you're gonna be having at home some 4 caribous or 5 caribous or whatever nonsense is like that, extra, just like that. Instead, players are doing it the opposite way, and when they would be needing to switch on the outside Hunt, that's already gonna be the time when they're gonna be getting raided, and therefore they can't go there, and they're gonna be stuck at home. So players not even able to correctly play with the god power and utilize its full power, and then we're gonna be basing some balance changes on that. But nonetheless, this is just like saying that the god power actually really is good, and it's actually supposed to be even better than what players are giving it credit for currently, including evidently the people in the patch, because they're playing the same wrong way. The decrease of 750 to 600, is that enough or not? Again, would be loving to see what is right now the real reasoning. Did actually maybe Boyd post something about that one? Just the meteor. Okay, I'm gonna be looking at the meteor after so that I don't dilute this. Okay, so they didn't explain that. The kind of funny part with Great Hunt is that in a lot of cases, I'm gonna go and on a limb and say majority of the cases, it's cast inefficiently in a way as well that it's not gonna be getting all the 750 food. Usually, you're gonna be getting like at minimum 50 less. So you could be considering it at like 700. Very often, it's gonna be like 650. So this change is, in my opinion, effectively like removing 50 food from somewhere, which could be having consequences because, of course, you are having the animals on specific amounts of foods, right? So typically, if you have rhino, that's 500 food. You are not gonna be getting a free caribou next to it. There is 150. So that's gonna be very interesting, like from that point of view, that you're gonna be having to do better counting. But considering that even now players are not counting at all, they legitimately aren't. Most of them aren't. When you are gonna be streaming and looking at the games, then, well, maybe this is gonna be a bit more of a nerf because of that as well. Unless they learn to count, and then this is not gonna be as big of a nerf as they think. But what it kind of feels to me, and what some kind of other posts I have seen and topics, is that it's supposed to be aiming most probably at goats and specific maps and situations. And Chronology J, thank you very much. Yeah, some of them were. I kind of think that I understand what they mean based on what also... who was the guy who was posting it there? Groot was posting. I think I kind of understood most of them. What they mean, but thank you very much. It's gonna be helping others. No, and therefore, I'm thinking this is maybe not gonna be as big nerf as people are expecting it to be, besides the specific situation like Tundra, where you are getting 7 goats, which is absolutely insane. And of course, this is gonna be somewhat covering it. And also team games, where you're having a lot of goats. So simply maps, where you get a lot of goats, Great Hunt is getting a lot of effectivity. And by the way, this is something I'm gonna be trying to claim a bit of a kind of like right for, because I am the one who is for years claiming that you should be using Great Hunt on goats more than on hunt. I'm saying that for years, that is actually where the power of the god power really is. And I was apparently right, because again, people are at this point complaining about the goats regarding Great Hunt as far as I see. So this is what I'm expecting from that. No, but that kind of begs a pretty serious question though. Is this really effective or not? Or can it be done different way? Again, I'm not against the change. I'm thinking that Great Hunt is extremely powerful if used right. It's actually very kind of weird god power in that way, slightly, for the first age. But nonetheless, with the goats, you're having practically one map. If I'm not mistaken, there is one map for 1v1 that's having insane amount of goats. And then you have some outliers that sometimes can be having that. So that's Tundra. That is culprit number one. Huge amount of food from hunt. And if you're gonna be getting the goat spawn, you have an insane amount of that as well in 1v1. And then I'm thinking that maybe sometimes Oasis can be high goat. I think that one other map can be weirdly high goat as well. And also Alfheim can be outliers high cow if I'm not mistaken. That's something that maybe ChronoGJ will be able to let me know. 750 is the original amount. It's gonna be now removed to 600. So I'm just kind of thinking that this is kind of tackled from a bit of an opposite way. From what I've also been seeing that or saying that and mentioning it on my streams, I actually wouldn't be afraid to make Great Hunt not affect goats at all. Because in my opinion, it goes significantly against the god power and kind of like the logic of it, in my opinion, as well. Ensemble Studios definitely kind of like meant it. Otherwise it would be, of course, removed. But I'm thinking that it could be just like legitimately only on hand. And it wouldn't be breaking anything at all, in my opinion. And it would be quite nicely lowering the power of the god power into what I think it could be as a healthy spot. Because right now the complaint is that Odin is having millions of food for free. And I'm thinking to be really bringing it down quite an interesting notch if you couldn't be able to use it. Because at this point, you're mostly going to be having combination of goats with hunt. Rarely you're going to be having only hunt, basically having moved and changed. So I'm thinking that the very easiest change would be simply not allow it to be on goats. I mean, like on high hunt maps, it doesn't matter. You're still going to be getting good hunt. On low hunt maps, it's still a huge bonus. Actually, I mean, like, still great. If you're gonna be considering 2 animal spawn on Alfheim or Oasis, you are still getting 300 food out of nowhere. That is hunt on top of it, which is therefore fast. So it is still great bonus in my opinion. I don't think it's any kind of like bad thing. Because just like you shouldn't be always getting 600 food, like why should you be getting all of that or 750? Plenty other god powers are not gonna be always the same strength. If you're gonna be using that in different way. Typically, Locust is gonna be varying, right? You're gonna be varying with practically every god power. So there's no reason to assume that Great Hunt always has to be on that high amount. I wouldn't be afraid of that kind of change. Or, well, from the other way, if people want to be keeping that on the goats, then do something with the maps. Because I'm thinking that really Tundra is weird. I'm not entirely certain I really see the reason for being such high on goats, if it's so high on hunt. Same kind of could be maybe said about Marsh a bit, but I'm thinking that Tundra is a bit more extreme, especially because you get it at the very start. That's like the biggest problem, because you're having that secure. You don't have to be even fishing for them across the map. That is the biggest problem in there. So I wouldn't be afraid of maybe culling Tundra into like maybe 5 goats, or 4 maybe even, and just like getting rid of the 7. That would be also helping practically what this is supposed to be helping with. And maybe like some of the extreme spawns, culling them like by 1 or 2 goats, I don't know, but it doesn't entirely matter that too much, because it's more of a fight in the middle. Tundra is more egregious because it's at the start. No, nonetheless, no problem really with the change. Just kinda thinking that it's not entirely understood actually how it's played and how it's used, especially by the players, and that they properly appreciate like the strength of the god power. So I'm kinda saying that this might not be enough, in other words, right? That it's still gonna be damn good and still keeping Odin top level. But Odin's Raven LOS 2250, no, that's legit like doing nothing. I mean, like, the vision is nice that it's gonna be lower, but the point is you're having the free scouts. That is the important part here. 2 free scouts with decent vision. That is why I'm also always saying that that relic for Pegasus is really powerful and really good. And you should be always picking it up, because it's basically having like a Raven for free, having that 3 Pegasus there. So this is not gonna be doing practically anything. You're still gonna be able to check out the TCs and gold mines and hunt and everything. So this is cosmetic in my opinion. Thor. Oh, actually right now I wanted to be talking about right now this tie into the lure. If you're gonna be touching this, I'm actually thinking that it might be very much worthwhile to think about the lure for Poseidon. Because like the amount of food it can get you is actually really high as well. What is right about actually the amount of you can get for that? Is that listed somewhere? It probably isn't. I'm entirely certain if somebody's gonna be remembering how much is it. It is, but it is a lot. You can get like plenty animals from that. So yeah, I'm kind of thinking that's maybe something that could be maybe wanting to be looked at. It's maybe a bit unnecessarily. If you're gonna be touching this, then maybe lure should be looked at as well for the same reason. But in the end, it's not entirely any kind of high priority or anything. Just the connection between those two, in my opinion, it would be worthwhile to have a look at. If somebody wanted to ever touch Poseidon, then yeah, that definitely is one of the things. You think that it's 1,000 food. Kind of trying to randomly remember some kind of amount of animals around it. Maybe it could be. It's a really big help in plenty situations, on low hunt maps, on water maps. It's really making Poseidon quite a bit interesting. On the other hand, he's considered weaker because he doesn't have restoration. So it's not really any kind of acute problem, just kind of random thought. If you're doing this, then maybe. That's also something to possibly think about. And also the meteors change. There was some kind of explanation for that, right? Wasn't there? Okay, so monitor it with testing. Quick revert is on the cards. So to go back, so sorry for this being a bit maybe weird in order. Expressed with regards to meteor is that too similar to tornado. Maybe kill a TC. No, then perhaps Horus never gets picked. No, I'm kind of thinking that Horus's power is also in the upgrades into Spearman, for example, and stuff. On the other hand, Book of Thoth is actually damn great for Thoth, so yeah. Yeah, this is something that maybe I could kind of see being a thing here slightly. And that's also why I'm thinking that the change is very wild. That it might be having some consequences that are not entirely understood yet. And again, the changes otherwise offered maybe could have been actually more than enough to make the god power a bit more relevant. I mean, like, this is not entirely that hard though to even test, right? You're just gonna at this point know that you're gonna be doing 2702 TC straight in 9 seconds. No, 6, because the first one, right? And 2 times 3 seconds. So in 6 seconds, you are doing 2702 TC. Tornado is 4,000. I think it's doing like 4,000 damage to buildings or whatever. It's doing 100 crash damage and 20 hack damage for 20 seconds. So it's supposed to be doing like, no, 2,000 crash damage. That's kinda wrong though, right? Because it can kill a TC, and TC is having more hit points than 2,000. And it is negated by armory too, though. Yeah, of course. That's gonna be also... Yeah, it's kinda weird. At this point, the numbers on Tornado and whatnot, that definitely doesn't seem to be right. Because currently it says this, if I'm gonna be showing it to you. 100 crash damage per 20 seconds, that's gonna be there for meaning crash damage 2000 and 400 hack damage. So that shouldn't be enough to kill a TC even. But it of course does kill TC very easily if it's unupgraded. So there's something more to this, so this is not entirely relevant. I don't know if there's some kind of bonus against buildings or whatever. But this is obviously not correct with experience. So not sure what's gonna be the direct comparison, but really that shouldn't be too hard to look at and even test. So not entirely understanding why this needs to be like a test change. Because you're just gonna be seen by one use if it's better or not. No, and Pesh agrees that Thor is the weaker Sith. Okay, that's actually where we currently are. Yeah, that's a bit of a random change as well. In general, like, why not, I guess? To just gonna support the identity of Thor. That he's gonna be having simply the armor he's helping. But I'm having a bit of a problem that has been already raised in the discussions, that this is not gonna be helping in the early stage. Because I always thought that Thor's problem is that he's a bit too slow to get going. I haven't heard anybody complaining about this late game. And this is helping with the late game practically. This is helping with Ragnarok, effectively. You're gonna be having much better timing for well upgraded Ragnarok because of that. But in the early stages, like, who cares? You are going with Thor, you are going for horses most of the time. You are not gonna be wanting to spend resources anyway, and this just like doesn't do anything for you. By the way, what is the research time for the first ones? Like 40 seconds? 30 seconds. So you're saving 15 seconds on each of the upgrades. Yay, congratulations, you have won the game. How is that supposed to be changing anything? I don't see that, sorry. I'm seeing this as a buff to the late game, but what they posed here. But I don't think that's needed for Thor. Weaker Siths right now, nerfing the top 3 gods. Odin, Hades, Uranus, you make the Wars gods better. I mean, like, we saw what Shelty was able to do with Thor, right? Earlier. If we buff Thor hard, we risk overdoing it. No, that's kind of like the problem, no? That he's already pretty good, but simply the other gods are easier to use. That's kind of like always a problem. Same with Uranus, for example. That's always been an issue in Age of Mythology. That you are having good gods, they are not bad, but simply something else is better and easier to use. Thor is already a very viable pick on high hunt maps. No, yeah, definitely. Again, bringing back the match between Shelty and Kimo and the discussion who was here. That's gonna be brought up also later, by the way, once more. And definitely playable on hybrid maps like Anatolia and Midgard. No, because actually Picksticker is really great. Lack of counterplay versus jump in Anubite. What? What kind of matchup are you talking about? Again, non-existent matchup that doesn't exist anywhere. Maybe in mem games. Like, again, this is just like some kind of weird chimera that this actually happens somehow like every other game. But nonetheless, maybe it's a bit of explanation why they are touching the Anubites to help Thor specifically. No, well, a bit of weird, I guess, in my opinion, but alright. At least it's gonna be some explanation, maybe. But I mean, like, Thor is having Forseti, right? So you can potentially go there as well. And go for even Ulfsax. I have already seen some successful builds with that as well. Because you're gonna be also having the, especially on high hunt map, it's gonna be also a viable play for him. Because he's having the high amount of food for that. By nerfing them as well, it's easier to defend against early aggression on open maps. Overall expect Thor to be a mid-tier god dispatch. No, well... yeah, that basically makes the Anubite change quite a bit speculative, because it seems to be for Thor. And kind of, no, yeah, practically only for Thor. And this one, just like, I'm not really sure I get, because it's not really helping Thor in... That's what they say. They want to be helping in the early game, and they're helping in the late game. So, doesn't make sense to me. But in the end, why not? Just hope that they are aware. If Thor becomes played a bit more, then that Ragnarok is gonna be pretty nasty. Because it's gonna be much faster coming for you with the upgrades then. Because you don't have to be waiting for the iron upgrades. By the way, the iron upgrades are taking longer than, yes, 50 seconds. So they're gonna be taking only 25 seconds to make. So, yeah, straight increased power of Ragnarok right there. I'm not really certain that anybody would be complaining that Ragnarok is weak. I haven't heard anybody say that, rather the opposite. And again, this does nothing in the early game, because you just don't want to spend the resources in the first place too much, even though you have the discount with Thor. How much is it? There is a discount, right, on the armory being cheaper. And you have the extra armory upgrades in there. No. Yeah. In the end, why not though? We'll see what it does. No Atlanteans. That's also where it gets very funny here. As Promethean nerf speed. This is very strange. I'm not entirely understanding where this is coming from. Prometheans seem fine to me. Maybe the little nonsenses could be a bit slower, but in the end they're just gonna weak anyway. But this is gonna be tied to this Chronos change in my opinion. I'll be liking to see it confirmed, but this seems to be offset for the Chronos. So that he's not gonna be that quick. This is something that actually Forgotten Empires likes to do, and like to do with Age of Empires too. Basically, like give a special bonus to a civilization, and then they remove the same thing elsewhere, so that it's basically looking impressive, but in the end, it's not gonna be that much. So this kind of seems to be going in that direction, because otherwise, I don't see the reasoning for this. So I'm gonna be going with that. No, so well, that practically means therefore not much of a change to be honest. What is the speed currently? Prometheus is going to be speed 4.4, so he's gonna be there for, this is 10%. Well, it's gonna be actually right now making them like 4 speed, 396 therefore. Oh, wait a second, in Oranos with the speed, which is increased there as well. But nonetheless, the base speed is 4. So you're gonna be having 3.6. So you're gonna be having still 4 speed Prometheus as an Oranos. And you are going to be therefore having, for the Chronos, you're gonna be having 4.4. So basically this is like a this is like a switch between Prometheus of Oranos and Chronos. Or Chronos is gonna be currently Oranos' Prometheans. Well, they're a very interesting switch, I guess. It's obviously gonna be for all the speed units or the myth units, but obviously Prometheus is gonna be the most relevant. I mean, like, then what do you have with Chronos in the next stages and ages? Automatons, no, well, nobody plays that, of course, if you have Valor in there on Prometheus, which is, of course, the unending problem for the Atis. Then, Satyrs, they're going to be there for at about 4.5. That's alright. It's no problem. Behemoths are gonna be changing into 3.6. That's still pretty slow. That's not gonna be changing too much either. No, yeah, exactly. That's what I'm meaning. That it's changed basically only on the Prometheans. That is a very convoluted way how to change Prometheans between Chronos and Oranos. Not convoluted, like one possible way. Heka Gigantes potentially into 4 speed. That could be interesting. For the Heka Gigantes, that might be a bit curious actually. Because they are already fairly nice unit. And this could be possibly helping that. Oh, and of course the other one is Argus, and that's a bit of a sad, misunderstood unit that could be using some further assistance, to be honest. But nonetheless, yeah, that's a Prometheus change, nothing else, practically. For the others, okay. So that's not entirely that much of a different thing here. And Rhea Hordes of Consecration, sure, why not? Plenty of the things could be moved into Temple that are coming with the gods. This is the one for increased favor rate, right? Yes, increased favor rate, so it's gonna be there for in the Temple. No problem with that, I guess. At the same time, is it really that much of a change? Because you're gonna be almost like full-on villages when you're gonna be potentially wanting to upgrade that, so is that much of a big difference, really? I mean, like, you're not gonna be going fast heroic with Chronos, so you're gonna be heroic in where 12, 13 minutes maybe is kind of the standard for Atlanteans. And by that time, you are practically full on wills, normally, or very close to it. So, this is barely any kind of change. And not sure if you're gonna be having enough gold to get it immediately after advance, for example. So, not certain, but no problem. No, of course, right now, the kind of like mammoth in the room. Shockwave, holographics, villages. This is a very strange change. And kind of like quite out of nowhere. Again, something I've never heard anybody complain about. So again, seems like a bit of a PTSD of some kind of recent game from somebody who wanted to be simply getting rid of that because they just kind of felt that they can't play against that. This one is very wild because it's also removing plenty of possible play and some even a very cool and creative way of playing. Remember, for example, when you sometimes see somebody is gonna be throwing away villages from one side of the wood line to the other. This is a supremely cool play, and this is gonna be completely removing that. And it's supposed to be because of early game. We're gonna be right now reading. Oh, that's a fairly big one here for the shock. Oh, let's gonna maybe go first with my ideas, and then we're gonna be answering actually for the rest. So it's supposed to be a change for basically like making worse the early abuse by the Atlanteans, by the Oranos, of course. Now I have one problem with that. This is something that is powerful if you're gonna be having oracles into heroes. And that is something that has been really on a decline in the community and way less done than it used to be. It's almost becoming extinct to be honest, in the games that I'm seeing. And it doesn't matter if it's team games or 1v1s in tournaments. So this is a strange change now, to be honest. And from other point of view, it's gonna be basically like limiting options because again, it's gonna be significantly worsening therefore the oracles early. So therefore the 4-minute advance is also gonna be weaker because that's usually something that you need to defend with villages as well. So at that point, that's what we always talk about, that villages are practically classical H unit. They are very similar to something like Ulfsak in power. So they are absolutely legit units. And from that point of view, exactly, you could be thinking that why the hell Shockwave shouldn't be therefore working against that. So it's somehow supposed to be at this point therefore making it easier to survive early kind of like abuse by Oranos. But at the same time, Oranos is kind of like made for the early abuse. He's supposed to be having that. The whole Atlantean race is kind of made that way, that they are having powerful early game. And if you survive that, they should be getting kind of like partially or consequentially weaker as the time goes and you stronger. So yeah, you're gonna be potentially like therefore moving the power a bit further. This is gonna be also meaning that, for example, you can't protect Cairo Ballistae if you're gonna be adding as Oranos. This is gonna be, in my opinion, especially a problem against Kronos, for example, who's gonna be probably forcing you into Kairos yourself, and therefore you're not gonna be able to, basically you're gonna be therefore having then villages on your Kairos a lot more, and he's gonna be having stronger ones because he's having less expensive ones, right? So I'm thinking this is also having interesting consequences on that. That Kairos are gonna be made weaker for Oranos, but you could be kind of saying that we are saying what's gonna be made weaker for Oranos, who is the strongest Atlantean god, right? So that it's maybe not entirely that much of a problem. So from that point of view, you probably aren't going to be entirely that much wrong. But the fact that this is going to be removing so many options and it's going to be having some consequences, for example, especially on, for example, blocking second TCs, where the 4-minute advance is also another power of the Atlanteans. Because there was also an argument that, for example, that's probably something you're gonna be reading later, that Kronos can't be doing that, no, but well, Kronos is gonna be having Temple next to your TC. He's gonna be having Oracles next to your TC because he's having them stronger. So that's basically like very much a moot argument. And Gaia, well, nobody cares about Gaia's early aggression because she's not made for that. So you're kind of like talking only about Kronos, and he does have the option to do it still. Whereas he's gonna be removing from Aura. And therefore, he's gonna be having very hard time stopping second TCs at this point. So again, this also, by proxy, helps the 2 TC meta, which is supposed to be the biggest problem in the community. So from that point of view, it's also weird design choice, what to act upon and what to do. And in general, I'm still not entirely certain and understand why it's actually targeted in such a way. They want to be weakening Oranos. That's what they said, because the other gods are made a bit weaker, so they want to be touching Oranos as well. But the biggest problem with Oranos always is and always has been the speed of the units. It has to be the speed. That is the problem. Always has been, always will be. Right now I'm going back to, if you remember, about a month ago, the match between Chemo and Shelty that we were streaming from Divine Intervention, where we were arguing that if Chemo was playing Oranos and not Kronos, then he was claiming that he would win. That was exactly about speed. His whole argument was about the speed being the difference maker. And yes, that speed does make the difference. And we have also quite a clear way how to fix that. And others have done that. I'm talking about Forgotten Empires with Age of Empires 2. When the geniuses there took the speed bonus from Oranos, from Age of Mythology, gave it to humans. They were having also, if I'm not mistaken, 10% at start. No, and what happened? It was broken as hell, of course. It completely broke the game, and they had to nerf it, the speed. So they nerfed it, if I'm not mistaken, they nerfed it to 5% from 10, and then it increases with ages. Then it increases like 10% or 7 or 10%, I don't know, some kind of I think there is an increase on that. So, yeah, the speed, if you want to be nerfing Oranos, it has to be the speed, and it is the speed, because it is what makes Oranos the most annoying. It is not the combination of minor gods, it is not Shockwave, it is not Valor, it is not nothing like that, it is the speed. Until people understand that, you're gonna be always missing with hitting Oranos with nerfs. Exactly as Chrono says, it simply needs to be the speed. It is the solution to all your woes and problems. And this is something that I've been saying that, and not only me, plenty of people have been saying that. And I don't understand why that is being avoided like some kind of cursed ground or I don't know what. Even the 5% extra speed is gonna be great. And if you're gonna be staggering it, you can just gonna move it exactly as Chrono says, more in the further ages. It's gonna be absolutely fine. Because legitimately where the biggest problem lies is, again, the classical age. And that's what you're trying to target. Because in the classical age, it makes the most difference in the like, relatively slower units that you have there still. And the lower amounts of units, so therefore the maneuvering is a bit more important, which is facilitated by that. So yeah, this is kind of like random change. I'm not entirely certain what kind of experience costs somebody to actually go for that. Comes absolutely out of nowhere, in my opinion. I've never heard anybody complain about Shockwave in the opposite direction. Atlanteans wanting it to be returning back to 4 seconds. That's the only complaint I ever remember about Shockwave, ever since it was moved to 2 seconds. And I'm still thinking that at 2 seconds it's okay. You just kind of need to be using it a bit differently. But there have been definitely great cases of usages, and it's still superb. But like seriously, this just like doesn't make any kind of sense. This seems to be a knee-jerk reaction to somebody getting owned by Shockwave on, I don't know, and then insta-resigned or out of tilt. This doesn't seem like a thought-through change at all. So if I, for example, understand some kind of experimentation here, even though I'm thinking it's missing the mark and also going off what I would be imagining what could be even doing, this one is, in my opinion, completely wild. The Shockwave. No, nonetheless, same as the Kataskopos. Those two are, in my opinion, completely wild, ran off nowhere. Then I'm not entirely certain how they are actually making it through. But nonetheless, that's what we have gone through. So right now, let's have a look onto right now the justifications here. No, so removing the arguments. Okay, so remove strategy areas, decision-making space, changes being made throughout the balance patch. No, yeah, well, sometimes yeah, shifting sense typically. But if you want to be comparing shifting sense and Shockwave, you probably need to be, you need to be putting yourself off the drugs. That's a completely different way. Shifting sense were nerfed because it was practically -3 villages instantly. In the original case. Shockwave does nothing like that. Like, never. Never seen it do anything like that at all. You could be thinking it's basically like triple use got power, or whatever multi-use got power, so theoretically, but the charge up is actually so long that you're gonna be at most using one on villager, the first one, and the others are gonna be almost exclusively going to army. So you are basically thinking also on only one there. No, so yeah, this comparison is in my opinion not very valid. Shockwave in the Loki matchup. That is a very important point, frankly, this one. Because again, it doesn't work against heroes. And if you're gonna be therefore going for the Herser build, then practically Shockwave is gonna be used where? By the way, does this mean that you can be targeting Ox cards? So you're gonna be throwing away Ox cards maybe and killing those because of that. Oh well, but yes, like a bit of a joke, but nonetheless, I kinda wonder if that's also intended. Myth units and human units, we think most people who actually play the Oranos Loki matchup realize that pure Herser from Loki isn't something that works. No, I mean, like, from one point of view, you could be saying that, or usually the counterplay against Loki is gonna be, no, it depends on player. Some are gonna be going the standard, but kinda generally the recommended one is gonna be heavy Murmilos, right? Which is gonna be forcing early throwing Axemen, and at that point you're gonna be having the Shockwave in that as well. So this might not be as much of a problem. It will be more of a problem in team games, probably. Because in team games, full Hersers are way more prevalent and way more reasonable. So this might be a team game problem, more than a 1v1. Because in the 1v1s, yes, if you play it properly, you're certainly gonna be forcing the Loki into different units to use the Shockwave anyway. And yes, Shifting Sense was, that's also a good point, that I'm thinking is actually being bit kind of shuffled away. And that is the fact that Shifting Sense, typically that one, that is an extremely controversial, got power changes there. There was a controversion every single time it was actually touched, and it was touched several times. So yeah, that is also a very good point, that exactly this was very problematic to even actually set on something. To be set on something and some kind of good result on that. So really, this comparison is not, in my opinion, genuine too much. So this is, okay. This one, yeah, I'm thinking that there are some people who are gonna be playing full double temple, maybe even, and full Hersers. Like Loki Macro maybe likes to be doing that, or I don't know, maybe Mahde also likes to be playing in such a way. But nonetheless, this is maybe not gonna be as much of a problem in 1v1. Legitimately for Valor attack, Kronos does this and gets value without Shockwave. No, but well, again, he's gonna be having temple next to your villages. So he's gonna be on you very quickly. So he has extra help. Furthermore, the big problem here is that when player reacts immediately to seeing the Oranos advancing at 4, and end up losing a villager due to Shockwave. Oh, I wouldn't be agreeing with that at all, therefore. Really not. That highly depends. That highly depends how well you actually scout and kind of like on the execution of it. I wouldn't be definitely saying that with certainty in such a way. Thinking this is overblown. Again, this kind of feels like that really somebody lost to it and kind of fumbled and lost 2-3 villages through Shockwave and then nerf it. That's how it strongly feels to me, this change, if this is one of the reasons. No, and well, comparing to Forest Fire, if you have been on my streams, you're gonna be knowing that this is a completely moot argument because almost everybody uses Forest Fire completely wrong in the community. Completely and utterly wrong. So this is not an argument for me at all. Forest Fire should be used way differently than it is. And people are practically throwing it away. Most of the cases you're gonna be seeing basically Forest Fire cast on the first woodline your Valkyrie is gonna be seeing, which is complete waste of the potential. If we're gonna be taking away even some kind of possibilities of later usages for protecting your army or forcing the opponent into some kind of Forest Fire battle, then even just kind of like at least thinking about where to cast it and when. That's kind of always what I talk about, especially on water maps. Cast the Forest Fire when the opponent is having to micro water battle. That's where you want to cast it, because that's gonna be forcing him to either choose the villages or choose the boats. He can't be doing both of those at once. So if you're gonna be forcing that situation, you are a winner, but nobody does that. That's basically usually by coincidence, if it's gonna be coinciding with the Valkyrie arriving there. And that's exactly what I'm talking about, where people are using this God power wrong. Always have been, and probably always will be, because they just kind of refuse to even think about using it differently. We immediately show something is not quite right. Wow, this... No, well... Facepalm, like, on... You're gonna be saying that, and instead of actually casting Forest Fire better, you're gonna be just, like, going into complain mode and saying that Forest Fire sucks. Like, if you're gonna be having such an approach to balancing and problems in the game, then please open the door and leave. Because this is just, like, exactly the problem. You are not even capable of thinking of how to use the god power differently. That is right now exactly showing the problem, which is not like just in the patch team or whatever. That's frankly a bit of a curse of Age of Mythology and always has been. Always practically has been. That they think that they are playing the game the best way possible, and that after 15, 20, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 years, it has been all figured out, and is therefore in the best way possible they play in it. No, well, until of course somebody does something different, and suddenly then they're gonna be playing the best. Simply not. The game is not played well. I say that all the time for years. No, it isn't. Because I have the comparison with other games, like especially Age of Empires 2, and I see the different levels of excellence in each of the game. And it's evident that AOM is not there, nowhere near the level of kind of supreme quality as Age of Empires 2 is developed. And in Age of Empires 2 still, some things could be improved. It's still not at the absolute topest. But here in AOM, you definitely do have a lot of room for improvement, and this Forest Fire is exactly one of the parts there. So this is right now, I'm thinking quite a bit of a red sign as can I do classic tunnel vision, that you are basically considering that you are playing the game well, and therefore anything that is not working in your favor has to be because the game is broken. And Forest Fire is having really just like way more actually different usages as well. So it's a bit of a weird comparison, but nonetheless, this is just like something that's gonna be always getting me going. If somebody is gonna be talking about Forest Fire being weak. Because you are not using it right, I'm gonna be repeating it again. No. And Avaz, it's RTS Sanctuary. I'm gonna be giving you the link for that if you wish. So sorry that I'm getting a bit ranty, but I just can't help it. I'm just gonna that way. If you want some more tempered experience, then ChronoJJ is the one who's gonna be giving you better and more concise opinions. But they're gonna be, of course, also quite a bit common with mine, to be honest. We actually curiously view a lot of things similarly. But he's always kind of like the more calm one and composed one. And the one to talk to if you want to be having some actual discussion. I'm just getting way too opinionated. No, nonetheless. So, Village Rush undefeatable and undefendable. That seems to be kind of like, yeah, I'm thinking that's slightly missing the mark. Because the others are not having that much of a better situation, to be honest with that. So I guess it's gonna be bringing Oranos into the line there. With this one, I'm gonna be having one addition, and that is Tower Rushing Gold. Nobody does that, but it's extremely dangerous against an Atlantean. With especially Egyptians. Because, again, Atlantean doesn't have a single unit that doesn't cast gold. He needs gold for everything. So therefore, if he's gonna be having forward gold, advance at 4 minutes as an Egyptian, drop a tower, GG. I'm having a game like that between Temista and Miracleman on my YouTube. If you are looking for a build and an explanation what it's supposed to be. But yes. That's, in my opinion, also quite a bit underused strat. Wonder if maybe now it's gonna be used a bit more, because again, you can't counter it. If you're gonna be going for 30, you're gonna be having set on you with a tower at 415. Good luck. I don't know what you're gonna be doing against that. I legit don't know what you're gonna be doing against that. Because he's gonna be having the animals with him. Well, so, bit of inspiration maybe for somebody. So yeah, that's just like a bit of inspiration in here. Otherwise, the Will Rush, I'm thinking, on its own is just like really same as with the other gods, to be honest. Second TC will be impossible to stop now. Yeah, that is a problem, in my opinion, legitimately. That will be therefore facilitating the 2TC build and making it easier. For specifically, for example, Hades, right? If we're talking about that. So Hades versus Oranos is gonna be actually becoming kind of even worse matchup at this point, I guess, for the Oranos. And that already is not entirely considered that much of a great matchup for the Aura, if I'm not mistaken. Define future whether or not the TC can be built. No, well, that very often actually can be, though. Depends, of course, how it goes, but nonetheless, it's one of the kind of weapons in the arsenal, I guess. It's funny though, you were to some of my early patch opinions discussions, you might not say that. I mean, like, for example, I'm not against, like, wild changes either. I mean, like, I'm gonna be getting to that later, for sure. One of my kind of wilder ideas, but they actually, in my opinion, they are not too wild, but definitely would be considered such by plenty of people, but we're gonna be getting to it. Okay, every other Sith can stop a TC the same way by having significant amount of army attacking said location. Well, no. By now you're gonna be making also the Greeks weaker on stopping the second TC. So they're gonna be kind of motivated to actually more make their own and kind of therefore camp because of the weaker heroes. I can actually wonder if this is gonna be having the opposite effect and therefore the meta becoming more 2TC. No, and Oranos is a weak god. Why is he being nerfed? That was like supposed. No, I wouldn't be saying that Oranos is weak. Definitely wouldn't go there. I think Oranos is quite a bit fine. Again, you just gonna need to be maybe a bit adjusting, for example, with the shockwave usage and whatever, but he's still really damn good. Exactly because of the speed, it allows him a lot of activity, which kind of maybe locks it slightly beyond kind of some certain skill level that you need to be kind of good enough to be able to utilize the speed. And if you are, then you are pretty much all right. Yeah, he's fine. I would be saying that Oranos is weak. I don't go there at all. No. I mean, like, they even talk about that. Sky Passage is, in my opinion, something that should be made more available. So therefore, probably still cheaper. Because it is a great thing, but rarely used. And usually, kind of the reason is maybe the cost, I guess. So I think this is actually very legitimate to still be tackled. So that his extra thing is also used a bit more. This is really weird. You're gonna be having therefore difference between shockwave and speed, and you're gonna be arriving on the shockwave. Like, first, I don't understand why this is like the discussion, but whatever. The speed is just like absolutely the way to do and to go for Oranos, and always has been. Always. Until that's gonna be done, he's gonna be always overwhelming. You're reading through some of the early patch stuff from like 103, 104 the other night, and it was kind of funny. Some of the understanding comes... No, yeah, well, exactly. Of course, it comes from the experience, sure. Because we have been both through like 10 years of trying to do these things and being in the discussions. You have been even the one doing the patches, so therefore you do know how the game even works on coding base. You were doing maps. So of course, you understand it. I'm gonna be blatantly prideful here as well, and I'm gonna be saying that I also understand the game on quite a different level than everybody else. But yeah, well, think of it what you will. Your problem. I don't care too much. I know my own. So yeah, that's also why, like, my first reaction on this patch was very incredulous based on some of the changes in there. No, nonetheless, that's gonna be there for that Oceanus buff. Yeah, there was a lot of talk about that maybe Oceanus, like Bite of the Shark, and the weightless mace should be made for wood. I think that's a bit of a dangerous thing. Because once you're gonna be changing those upgrades from food into wood, they are massively more kind of like available. It's way easier to get them. So you want to be careful with those big changes. But it's also, for example, why something like Huskarl is powerful. because he doesn't cost food, and he costs wood and gold. That's why they are great. It's a great addition in there. It's a good pick for Gaia. No, yeah, well, sure, but nonetheless, Oceanus is picked most of for water maps. I mean, like, why should she be picking actually something else there, of course? Get above Prometheus without heavy reworks. Oh, well, it's the Valor, right? That's always kind of like those with the elephant in the room. That's always gonna be great. It's basically like same. You're gonna be always... Free units are always gonna be a great thing. That you don't have to be paying for. I mean, like, though, specifically Carnivora is actually really good if you're gonna be able to use her well. So maybe just like adjusting the Carnivora in some way. There were some suggestions to have her move around on land, for example, being available to move around. Not entirely certain about it too much, because at this point it would be like a bit of a weak tree from Njord. But on the other hand, I mean, like, if you would be having one and she could be moving around, maybe it could be making some sense, but I'm not sure if I would be wanting moving Carnivora with multiple charges. That seems kind of bad. But maybe it could be some kind of like variant, possibly. Doesn't she regenerate? Maybe what could be funny if... No, well, but that's only for Gaia. No, I was kind of thinking if Carnivora would be spread in Lush, right? But that should be kind of just like a Gaia thing. But if she was spread in Lush, even for Oranos, now that would be, of course, a stopper of second DC right there. But insta stopper, of course, so... Yeah, I guess it would be... Maybe like way too much of a straight play. But frankly, I'm thinking that might be actually quite a contestant to Prometheus at that point. Like a serious one. No, well, but probably not sure if I would be wanting to go there too much. But whatever the case, at this point, could be decided that patch felt would land, not impact our already strong pick on water. As the case for gods like Dionysus. I mean, like, Dionysus is a very weird mention, and Njord as well, to be honest. I mean, like, who the hell goes those gods in even water maps? Mostly when somebody wants to be trolling or, like, memeing. Like, let's not pretend these are normal picks. That's very disingenuous to say that. They are great. I would be liking to see them used way more. But let's not make it out that they are 50% picks or whatever. Wouldn't really go that far, to be honest, with that. No, nonetheless, that's gonna be there for that. Chronos Myth unit speeds we've already talked about, and stone changes onto Stonewall upgrade. Yeah, I kinda don't have a problem too much with that. Stone walls or walls overall are quite a bit common lately. They have become... I don't think that they have become that much of a serious problem, really. But I'm not against the increase in the cost, to be honest. Don't think that's too much of a problem that's worth it to be testing and seeing. So what do you have otherwise in chat here that I didn't entirely finish? Yes. Experience and how changes actually impact gameplay after effect. That's, yeah, exactly the experience that, yeah, some people have, like you, Chrono JJ, and that's why it's dangerous to be just like thinking that you can fix the game if you don't have that experience. Yep. Exactly as Mephiston says, that's kind of like the important part. And really, I think the biggest problem, always has been the biggest problem with the patching, that players are self-convinced that they are playing the game the best they ever can, and therefore, if something is going wrong in the game, it has to be because it's imbalanced and broken. That is the absolute worst approach to anything. And of course, that's leading to all these kind of like knee-jerk reactions and knee-jerk changes and whatnot. And until, of course, you learn some humility, then, well, it's not gonna be getting too much better. And if you're gonna be, for example, not using even the god powers correctly, or using specific kind of how the game works and mechanisms properly, you just kind of don't even know what is properly broken and what isn't. So if you're gonna be not entirely playing it right, then yeah. And really the problem, and that's also kind of like another problem. I want to be talking about that a bit later, but I'm just gonna be right now touching it since we are going there. Also the problem is that expert players are people who shouldn't be making decisions. Expert players are the absolute worst to make decisions. They are great for insights, but they are worst at making decisions because they are biased. All of them, every single one of them. Most in the way that they don't even realize it. Because if you're gonna be playing so many games, thousands of games in a certain way, you just get inevitable tunnel vision and you don't even realize it. You're gonna be having very hard time to kind of like even imagine playing somewhere in some kind of other way. Typically what we have seen in the justifications there earlier. And you're just gonna be therefore tilting reality to your point of view. So that's why you shouldn't be making the decision with such a point of view. You're gonna be great for insight and pointing out the problems, but someone else who's gonna be having a bit more overall view and a bit more understanding of consequences and other things should be making the decisions as basically a bit of an impartial part to it all. So that's also something that really needs to be kind of taken into consideration. And this is also where it's unfortunately quite a bit of failure of just like the players, otherwise the community itself, that it doesn't realize that and basically thinking, hey, he's a good player, so therefore he understands everything. No, well, no, it's exactly the opposite actually. He might be very likely not to understand something because he just simply is fixed in his way of doing things. And not everybody is able to basically get beyond that. And this is not something that's like necessarily just like their fault and doing it on purpose. Mostly not. They just kind of don't realize it. I mean, like how many times in your life have you had kind of like epiphany that you have been doing something in a certain way for years and then you realize, hey, I can just do it in a different way. And out of nowhere, you're just gonna be changing something because it's better. But it never occurred to you because you didn't have a reason to think about it differently. I didn't even have a spur to do it. Yeah, and also striving balance in Age of Mythology shouldn't be striving for 50-50, so therefore doing everything same. It's a asymmetric design, so therefore you are supposed to be having checks and balances. So therefore you are supposed to be having some strong parts and weak parts. And if you're gonna be trying to put everything onto the same level, which is kind of more evident on especially maps and people wanting that, then it obviously removes a lot of things that make the game fun. And quite often actually even balanced, because the balance is gonna be also kind of tied to different imbalances, let's say. It's a very complex issue in these kind of cases. If you look at the changes, you can understand how inexperience in balancing could be playing a role in some of them. Yeah. Again, it's just like specifically for the two of us. You have been directly involved. I have been always kind of monitoring the forums. I kind of like never had any kind of real input because I was just kind of leaving it to the players what they want to be playing, because in the end, I'm just like a caster here. Even though I a lot of times didn't agree with what was being done and I would have thought that something else should have been done, well, just kind of let the players do it. But again, the experience with all the processes and all the years of changes, it really does give you quite a bit of a good idea about certain things and processes. Yeah, well, I mean, like the skill, again, just unfortunately, the skill doesn't prevent you from falling into certain habits and ways of things and then being blind to other things, because that's how we are kind of made. We are made for repeated actions because they are easier to do for us and for our brain. We are just kind of wired to be working in such a fashion, to be safeguarding energy and not having to think about things. Yep, exactly. If you are a player and if you get beaten by Oranos a lot, you start thinking that Oranos is OP. Exactly. And that's exactly where I'm thinking that the shockwave change is coming from. And to be honest, the Kataskopos as well. That basically like unwillingness maybe to contemplate the other implications of those changes. Like being in the way of understanding why it's actually so controversial. Come to the decision a long time ago that you lose because you stink. I mean, like, again, the game that I've uploaded of you against Lion is actually fairly nice. It was a good performance by you 20 years ago. So give it a go. Maybe you can like look at it yourself. There's a recorded game on RTS Sanctuary, of course, of that. So enjoy. It was quite fun, by the way. No, nonetheless, let's at this point, I guess, go here through some of the other things, the kind of like supposed bug fixes, if they're gonna be possibly having some balance implications. So Blue Crystal Shard, yeah, that is even in kind of like the tooltips that it's not helping the Gaia trees. Well, I guess why not? Blue Crystal Shard is in general very kind of weak upgrade. Yeah, I watched it on stream, but 4 years ago. I've uploaded it to YouTube already, like a few days ago. So you can kind of see there. Yeah, this one was very different, but at the same time, evidently high quality, to be honest. So it wasn't like sometimes you're gonna be seeing old games and a lot of idle time and stuff. This one, in my opinion, wasn't entirely that. Not entirely certain I haven't the link for that. Probably just like general YouTube, I think it's the last video there. Book of Thoth as of Wepovet. This is not entirely, I'm not entirely certain what this means. Do you have therefore that redone? Or and you were mentioning you've actually reworded it or something. Oh, that probably wasn't here then. So not entirely certain, maybe just kind of like not correct numbers that were supposed to be there and they weren't for the Egyptian villages. So what is that exactly? Because I'm not entirely certain. Serpent, siege, budget, and other units. Yeah, because I don't see it here, so it's something extra. It didn't give proper gather aid buff for Gaia trees. 10% instead of 11%, and Book of Thoth gave 0%. Yeah, well, that makes sense if Blue Crystal Shard was the same. As the poet, Hendax, Bowsaw, Carpenters now all affect Egyptian villages correctly. So that's actually tied to the Gaia trees as well then. Okay. That's interesting. Okay, so it's for Gaia trees, this one. Alright. So that's making sense then. Okay, idle timeout. This is something that apparently the units are having some kind of pause before they start attacking. Like, what do we have here? Budget and some other units. Because they have useless idle timeout, they react slower. So therefore, yeah, some kind of like wind up into attack being longer. I guess that's... hopefully not gonna be having some big implications, but frankly not like budget is OP. Animals of Set, sure, Jormund Elver, who cares? Walking Woods, who cares? This I'm fairly not certain about. This one could be a problem. Because Fimbul Winter Raiden, Fimbul Winter Wolf Raiden... Oh, that's actually Fimbul Winter Wolf, not like Fenris Wolf, right. If it was Fenris Wolf, that would be different. But Fimbul Winter Wolves, that's... no. I can still see that maybe in certain cases being an issue. Because that therefore means that potentially Fimbul Winter might be killing a few more wills. And it already does do a lot here and there. No, this one is to look out for in my opinion. Yeah. This one is something I'll be maybe a bit concerned about. Because I mean, like, you could be thinking that some things are bugs, but in the end, either they are, maybe they were left there purposefully in such a way, or maybe they just shouldn't be actually reverted from bug state. Golden Lion, who cares? Relic Monkey, who cares? Yeah, Fimbulwinter is the only one I'll be kind of maybe contemplating if it needs to be done. And definitely looking at that. Spider-X no longer... Yeah, this is kind of funny. Didn't even know its costume population, so yeah, well, obviously do away with that. That is a weird one. I actually wonder where it comes from in the first place. I guess it's gonna be coming from the fact that you can destroy them. That's probably gonna be like a code thing, maybe. Because you can destroy them for like a few seconds at the start. So maybe it is needed maybe for that so that they are targetable, or I don't know. Maybe there was some kind of tag that was forgotten to be removed, but no problem with this if it works. Oh, this way. They cost population until they become lair. Yeah, okay, so I was kind of understanding it correctly. Yeah, see? That's kind of like the understanding of the game, right? Through the experience that Chrono JJ and me have. And I'm gonna say it, not everybody else has. Just some people maybe who have dealt with things for a bit. But nonetheless, yeah, that's no problem. Eclipse now correct enough at Spesucho's crash damage. And I'm thinking actually this was a problem already mentioned some, maybe even years ago. I do remember this vaguely somewhere. So yeah, fine. Yeah, that's a mem unit, of course, War Turtle. But sure. It's gonna be though kinda interesting for the Petsuchi. Because maybe it could be make viable the Petsucho strategies, and they're gonna be able to snipe towers maybe with Petsucho's Ra, which is like 4 extra range, right? So like casting Spider Lair gives +8 pop right away. Jesus Christ, then goes away when they transform into Lair. Yeah, that's a bit annoying, so this is something that definitely doesn't need to be here. This is alright. Might allow for some Petsucho strats, possibly. Maybe Kmenki can come back. Skrelly no longer affected by Implode. Okay, so that's the similar situation as when the birdie, how's it called? Harpy, got sucked in and it basically made Implode not explode. Then I guess this is maybe also gonna be behind some of the implosions not working out. Could be. So sure. Caladria military unit tech. Yes, I guess. Don't see a problem with it. I mean, like, she's barely used anyway, so... But okay, Serpent now correctly does -90% versus Atlantean heroes, as it supposedly was doing some high amount of damage to them here. Only -50% bonus was against Atlantean villager heroes, so that was evidently oversight. That kinda brings me back to actually a lot of castings lately of Serpents on villages. I'm not entirely certain if people properly understand that they don't do any kind of damage to wills, really. If they are doing it really for like a few seconds of maybe idle time on the release. Because most people also overreact weirdly and run away from the snakes. I don't understand why, but again, maybe because they again do not know that Serpents do not do anything to wills. That could very much be. And Caladria now, yeah, should be able to be found with idle military. Yes, it's making sense. No sense for it to be a really like a village or whatever. Harpy bird. That's the bird that flies around, just like not the unit, just like the random beautification. That's called harpy. Oh, that's the harpy. And what is the normal one therefore called? I thought that even the normal one is called harpy. Harpy is only the green one then. Okay. And the normal one is called what? Like some kind of, I don't know, prey of bird. Or the bird of prey, rather. Yeah, some kind of lightning attacks can be, of course, targeting it down. Sure. Okay, safeguard no longer blocks. That's just like UI thing, right? So that's gonna be okay. Good. And fix the bug causing siege not able to attack certain units. That was apparently the special units like Shades, which is kind of interesting, of course, that it wasn't attacking them. Caravans, Ox Carts, Relic Monkeys, Golden Lions, so yeah, absolutely sure. Especially the Shades, I guess, but nonetheless, not like it's gonna be making that much of a difference with the Shades, possibly. And there were some further suggestions by Groot. Let's maybe see what didn't get included. Crenellations against Hetairoy. Yeah, that's a fairly contested, that maybe if it isn't kind of like purposeful. Because frankly, Crenellations destroy any kind of cavalry. I mean, like, there's a good reason why towers with Crenellations are one of the best defenses against elephants from Egyptian. So, I don't think that this is actually something that needs to be done. Hetairoy are not extremely overpowered or anything at all. So, yeah, this is no need to be changing. So this seems to be quite a bit alright. Minotaur on Automaton, Promethean. This is actually a bit funny because I'm thinking there are some units that I would be expecting that to be usable, but it isn't. I'm thinking it from the opposite way. Not like removing it from those units, but adding to another ones. I'm thinking that it could be done. And I don't think it would be too much of a bad idea. Because, for example, if I'm not mistaken, Minotaur can be headbutting Cyclopes or Cyclops. But Cyclops cannot be using the pickup on a Minotaur, which is kind of maybe strange. On the other hand, it's an insta-kill, right? So you would have to be probably nerfing it. So that's a bit of a difference there. That might be the logic behind that. So if I'm not mistaken, there are some that I was contemplating here and there. Why actually, for example, the special is not used there. This is maybe somewhat of a topic that could be revisited completely. If maybe there aren't some oversights in the code, and that could be maybe like changed a bit, maybe making some myth units slightly more interesting. So yeah. No, nonetheless, no reason to be removing it from any of that. Not like Minotaurs are too much of it. There was though a kind of wild claim somewhere that Minotaurs are that Minotaur spam is common somewhere. Again, and that was, I think, posted by somebody from the team. To be honest, that's also something I wanted to be talking about. I'm not sure, at this point my thoughts are all over the place. But it really feels to me that some of the people are living in different universes, to be honest, with how the gameplay goes. Or I have very different experience from them with how the games go. And I'm casting both low level, mid level, top level. And I just kind of don't see what they supposedly are making as an arguments for their changes. Very commonly, I don't see it too much. Often, yeah, some of their justifications make sense, but some of them are very wild. And I'm not entirely certain if they're not just kind of basing it on some random one-off experiences. I'm the last person who will be complaining about Minotaurs being used commonly. I'm always asking people, please, if you're gonna be doing Athena Rush, Jesus Christ, place the Minotaurs there. You're gonna be having so much better chances there, and it's gonna be so much better fight for you because they are great. The special attack is superb. You are having easier favor for that with Zeus. There's no actually counterplay to that. That would be saying that it's like a waste of resources. Just like a lost art, in my opinion. To be going for only the full hoplitless rushes is a mistake, in my opinion. The Minotaurs are just like so easy to get, especially on today's maps that are so high on hunt. You are just gonna be having the food almost always if you're gonna be Athena rushing in the north. So yeah, please use Minotaurs more. They want your love as well. No, nonetheless, starting Ulfsak, okay. Implode doesn't suck birds. Could suck birds only with military unit types, Timphalion, Phoenix, or like this way. I mean, like, if it doesn't break the game and it can handle it, I don't think it should be a problem to actually go for these guys. No, Nidhogg seems to be a bit... No, actually not, because Son of Osiris is getting sucked in as well. So why not Nidhogg? This is something that might be actually interesting to implement, just kind of like to make Implosion a bit more relevant. It's already relevant, but people finally learned how to use it. Instead of complaining for 20 years that it doesn't do anything to buildings, hey, suddenly they learned, maybe we can actually use it to kill enemy army. Thumbs up. And suddenly, useless god power is gonna be actually one of the top ones. Frankly, Implode is a top god power at this point. Because destroying one army fully is so great. And hey Apple, thank you very much for the raid. Hope you had some good games. Yeah, just kind of like talking at this point about the patch. We are already at the end, so if you're gonna be getting your blood boiling, I guess, since you are on the team, then, well, you can go from the start, but nonetheless. So yeah, this is actually something that might be worth thinking about. Based on the fact that Ori, Son of Osiris gets Saki Saki for like 200 hit points usually. Alright, bonus may affect. Not entirely certain what this means. That like it doesn't currently and should or could. I mean, like it increases pierce damage, excluding boiling attacks currently. Yeah, so that it basically could be doing that. No, I don't know. I'm not sure if I want to be increasing power of towers. Probably not. So that probably can be as it is. Eclipse, System of Bast. Well, that's, well, I'm thinking that's very much intended. I don't want to be thinking about System of Bast in the hand of Thor. I really do not. Like, seriously do not want to think of that. Or any kind of Norse for that matter. Having cheaper dwarves. No, 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 no. No, don't go there, please. Don't go there. And 10% on the food for the normal villas, that's... Generally, it's gonna be saving you some, what, 50 villages. So you're gonna be 50 times 50, so that's gonna be 2,500. You're saving like 250 food, maybe, on the whole progress. Bit of a caveat with this is that the difference is that basically it's partial and like bit by bit. That it's not only at the end. It's, for example, like a bonus that you have with Indians, or at this point Hindustanis in Age of Empires 2, and it's making a ton of difference because you're gonna be getting the villages easier there. It's basically somewhat akin to having the Atlantean food economy, the teleport. It just like increases your efficiency and lowers idle time in general on not only the villas but in everything else, because you're having less need of the food. Even the 5 food less is nice on the efficiency. But yes, way more I'll be worried about dwarves. I don't want to go there. No, it's not super. That's... thanks for showing up and showing that you don't entirely understand how the balance of these things works. But nonetheless, yeah. It actually is making a difference. You can just kind of go ask in AoE 2, for example, how 5% differences are enough to be forcing actually victories even and stuff. It's actually more influential than people think. It really depends when you get it. If you get it really early in the classical age, it helps, of course, a lot more. If you get it somewhere at 10 minutes, it's probably gonna be less consequential, of almost no consequence at all. But in the early minutes, it's gonna be pretty great. Where every single resource is actually gonna be mattering. So don't underestimate this super. Don't leave it lying on the ground. Even for you as a Norse, pick it up. It's gonna be helping here and there. I mean, like, how many times you are having a situation where you are missing that 10-15 food, for example, or you could be using the 5 extra food here and there. Transport, unload, trick fix. Yeah, that's the cheat, so nobody even please read into that, or you're gonna get banned. But if this is gonna be helping, that actually could be a bit interesting to add, possibly. Oh yeah, I'm not saying that it's not that Harmonious Necklace is not actually much better. I'm not saying that. But with the way you said it, you were saying that it's an awful relic. That's what I'm not agreeing with. That is a very wrong assumption, and not understanding how these small things work and how they add up. So don't underestimate that. So sorry if you felt offended, if you maybe misunderstood each other because of that. But yes, it's not an awful relic at all. It's actually a really great relic. But strongly depends if you get it as soon as possible. Then it really matters. And again, just like a classic example, look at Hindustanis in Age of Empires 2 with their discount on villages. And how much nerfed they needed to be, and how much dominant they still are. Multi-TC starts, for example. It's just like... No, there are plenty of examples for that. Siege towers, yes. Budget, yes. Okay, so nothing probably too much more here. Just like a few of the things to be going through as well. Yeah, we're also having that. No, well, at this point, since you have therefore gone through the things that are going to be touched, I think, you know, we therefore move into the things that maybe are bit interestingly not there. And I'm thinking that really the kind of like the first one is really that there's nothing that's gonna be tackling 2TCs, which like by and large for years by this time is something that is considered the biggest problem and annoyance and stupid meta. And practically nothing is tackling that here, besides maybe making it easier actually on the other way. Like the changes onto the Greek heroes, for example, the shockwave of course as well, partially. Kataskopos change. Like yeah, it's a bit weird. And well, personally I want to see 2TC, yes. I mean, like, he also sees it as well. I'm thinking that everybody is gonna be seeing that. I'm just kind of thinking this might be because they just couldn't figure out what to do with it. That they probably would be wanting to do it, but like how? No, well, the answer is very simple. I'm just gonna be getting to it when I wind up. But the big impacts on the game? Nah, not really. That's just not understanding what you can do. Other changes, maps. Yeah, maps changes. No, well, but unfortunately there is a bit of a kind of like a series of ideas of how to change maps that in my opinion is going in very wrong direction for this game. So I'm hoping they are never gonna be coming out. Super with the Pharaoh, well, for the Pharaoh, theoretically I could agree with that. Yeah, the 20% might be more interesting. But you're just gonna like picking up cases where it's gonna be useless. I'm just gonna saying that it's useful if you can be picking it up. So typically with Greek, it's gonna be always great. With Ra, who is the main Egyptian, it's gonna be also kind of worthwhile if you invest, that is of course into the hands of the Pharaoh. I'm just kind of thinking that it's really a misunderstood relic. And what kind of little changes these things actually make in the game. And how they help. You have always wanted to see this fix. Scarab's behemoth's destroyers now do full damage to buildings under construction. Ah, huh. That's a bit interesting. Also does small damage to building under construction as I recall. Titan, really? Interesting. Better to leave wall at 95% than finish versus Titan. Oh man. Yeah, that's a bit funny. No, nonetheless, I'm thinking that relic play is way misunderstood also in the community. And kind of like the importance of them in certain places and whatnot. And what annoys me the most, when basically people are gonna be walking around relics with heroes and just not picking them up, even when they are next to them. There's absolutely no excuse for that whatsoever, since it doesn't do anything to your unit. That bothers me the most. And I'm thinking it's exactly showing the best how people are underestimating relics, any kind of relics whatsoever, actually. There are gonna be a few of them that people are gonna be going straight R4. And yes, it will. Definitely some of the changes. And some of them are gonna be... I'm thinking that, a bit ironically, I'm having a bit of a personal tip that maybe Hades 2TC is gonna be easier right now on this patch. Which is gonna be actually a lot more annoying therefore, and these changes are not gonna be doing anything. Because again, I'm really thinking this is not hitting the problem of Hades at all. It's a help, but not hitting it correctly, in my opinion. But we already talked about that, so let's not go back to it, I guess. No, and now, Nora was therefore having some kind of other things here. Also things that I've mentioned elsewhere. No, for example, for the second TC, the idea is very simple. Also something that we have been talking about very commonly. You simply make the second TC be built longer in Classical Age. It's as simple as that. Simply make the TC be made, I don't know, half a minute longer. And suddenly you are having half a minute more to make army and get to that spot. That's basically like all you need to be doing practically. It doesn't have to be complicated at all. And on Heroic Age forward, it can just kind of go into the normal timings. That's in my opinion something I'll be at minimum testing if it's gonna be enough or not. Because the problem is that the second TC is basically built before you can even usefully get there. And if you are gonna be delaying it by that time, maybe it could be enough to actually make it at least risky in plenty situations that you are gonna be at least contemplating, well, am I gonna be having enough time to do it, or should I right now play one TC? I'm thinking this is something that would be worth testing. It probably doesn't really have to be anything too complicated. And it doesn't really remove anything too much. And you don't have to be even touching maps because of that, which should be kind of like the other way maybe to tackle it. But I'm thinking that the maps are somewhat okay regarding that. There are not that many that will be having safe second gold on second TC. That's not entirely as much common as it maybe used to be on some previous iterations. So yeah, I'm thinking this one is not entirely maybe this is like thought of being a bigger thing than it in reality is. Because this is gonna be, oh, right now I remember, oh, I'm glad actually, because I didn't make a note of that. I tried to be making a few notes here and there because my thoughts are all over the place usually in these things. And right now I remembered, because this is also how they fixed the problem with the second TCs in Age of Empires 2. So while Forgotten Empires are a bunch of clowns as far as design and things, because practically all the things they have taken from Age of Mythology that we knew here in the community that are broken, they have taken. Surprise, surprise, they were broken in Age of Empires 2 in the exact same way. So yeah, they are smart heads there, and those are the people who are hoping that Retold is gonna be a great game from. Just right now put in something in context. No. So what happened was that humans, if you don't know, there is a civilization that is as the only one in Age of Empires 2 able to build TCs in Classical Age. No, and what of course happened when they introduced them, no, besides the fact that they were having also the speed bonus from Oranos, then, well, of course that got nerfed, but the TCs were still a problem, a massive problem as well. And what happened as a nerf? No, they are made longer in the Classical Age, and that actually fixed everything practically. It's still quite a nice help on certain situations and maps, but it basically moved it from being completely broken OP into playable and kind of like within some kind of reasons. So again, just like the speed of building the second TC in the Classical is, in my opinion, the correct choice, and it has, in my opinion, already been tested. So there is a precedence for that it is the correct way to tackle it. Same as for the speed bonus. That is also the correct way to go for nerfing Oranos. Even the 5% would be enough to make a difference in the fights. Again, small numbers, but do not underestimate them. They make a difference. No, super, not that much. But you are kind of like saying the same things, by the way, at this point. Eggy builds TC really fast, Norse builds really slow. Yeah, sure, of course. But the point is, you are actually trying to prevent the annoying 2 TC builds, exactly, for example, from the Eggy, or from the Greeks. Well, no, specifically Hades, especially. So I don't entirely understand why you are even like picking this up. So it doesn't matter if you're gonna be delaying it for everybody or just like for them, because I mean, like, Norse are not gonna be having to go for the 2 TC build. Why are you even like mentioning that? If you are gonna be making it possible to raid the second TCs from Aegis, for example, and from Greeks, why the hell would you be trying to contest them on their own turf and not trying to go for 4-minute advance and block them? This is kind of like the classic tunnel vision of not being able to think out of the way you are playing currently. And that's of course a completely bad way to have a look at balance things and trying to balance them. So the point is to make the TCs risky so that somebody can be taking them down. Not so that everybody can be taking second TCs and making them for a minute longer and then, well, we are where we were. That's not the point, right? No, well, frankly, I don't have too much of a problem with normalizing building TC speeds on TCs. That's also another part that maybe, well, I'm already gonna be probably weaving it in as well. I'm fairly certain that you should be removing empowerment on Egyptian TCs. I'm really thinking that would be probably improving the gameplay overall if you would be having standardized TC build times for all civ the same. I think it should be done. Basically as it is for Titan Gate, right? It's kind of somewhat similar. I think that for the TCs it will be helping a lot. Because what is the biggest problem and annoying thing? Not if you're gonna be killing TC from an Egyptian and in 9 seconds it's back up. That's like the absolute something that you want to be kind of like throwing everything that you have in front of you out of the window. That's what's making the gameplay in the late game so damn annoying against Aegis. So this is one of the more wilder ideas that I'm fairly certain would be kind of like not entirely well, I don't know, thought of or whatever, but I'm thinking that it wouldn't be too much of a terrible change. Just like, because it's just like a basic game feature, and I don't believe there's any kind of reason that any civilization should be having easier TCs than the others. I don't think so. From all my experience of thousands and thousands of games, I just kind of don't see the reasoning for it. Besides some kind of like random flavor for the civilizations, but I'm thinking especially with Egyptians is completely toxic what they have with the TCs and empowerment builds and repairs. So yeah, that's kind of like my idea. Like it or not, it's not gonna be implemented anyway because nobody listens to me, but nonetheless, it's already been tested as well in other game that is very similar and is facing same problems with the same issues that we have here. And it, in my opinion, is the way to go if we want to be tackling it somewhat seriously. And it's not something that's gonna be really breaking anything too much. If you're gonna be feeling that really somehow Norse are gonna be because of that weaker, then sure, just normalize the speed or helping them to be making it a bit quicker. But at the same time, you can't be making it more quicker for Norse because they will be having easier stealing of TCs because of the army. So that's always that kind of like thing. Because Norse are designed to be making forward builds, building forward towers, and stealing from TCs. They were not meant to boom behind some kind of defenses all that much. The game somehow cannot develop that way that it's actually strong with the Norse. So yeah. So that is a bit funny that way. So what are we talking about here? Oh well, that's Norse, so I don't have to be reading that, I guess. But since everybody's gonna be reacting to it, I have to anyway. So we're just gonna keep it a bit more without some too many personal attacks. Thinking I'm already incendiary enough what I say with what I say here, so maybe not take it overboard. No, nonetheless, that's kind of there for the second TC. I really don't think it's too complicated, this one. So, for some other things that I'm having noted here. Atlantean late game. That is something that is also like a topic for all eternity and nobody has ever actually brought it up, and that's the fact that Atlantean late game is actually weaker than for others. Of course, there's the huge caveat that they have incredibly powerful early game, but once you get with at least into the late game, they of course bit struggle, depending in what kind of shape they got there. Now I'm thinking that the solution there could be, of course, doing something with hero citizens. That maybe if hero citizens, I mean, like, first, I probably wouldn't be having hero citizens cause the 4 population limit, just kind of like have them be at 3 normally. I'm thinking it would be just like more than enough. And maybe that could be enough of a help, because that could be theoretically allowing you to get a few more citizens as the hero in there. And maybe that could be enough to actually put your economy into better balance. And I don't really think it's gonna be breaking anything too much. In the early game, I also don't think that it would be. So yeah. It's 150 foot in there, but again, as I said, when we are going through that upgrade, I'm really thinking this is a bit... They probably think that it's gonna be doing more than it in reality will. I'm thinking that the approach to that should have been a bit different, and considering that most people are using Great Hunt ineffectively, then if they're gonna be learning to use it a bit better because of this change, actually not much might be changing in the end. So this is gonna be kind of funny, I'm thinking. Overall. Okay, I'm gonna be at this point having quickly to jump for some energy, so I'm gonna be back in a minute, but nonetheless, you're gonna be of course continuing, so sorry. Okay, so I need to write about my type here. Not yet. Every patch is quite a bit controversial. To be honest, this one is a bit more so, to be honest, than others. But nonetheless, none of them were born easy. Okay, so for the until late game, I'm really thinking it could be a 4 in some kind of touch. I'm thinking that the hero citizens are a bit of a weird mechanism as far as the increased pop limit and everything. So maybe it could be some kind of easy way how to maybe help them at least a bit in the late game. Like, it could be maybe allowing some 2-3 extra citizens for them, and maybe that could be enough through that. But really just some kind of random thought, not entirely completely necessary, but still interesting. Then, potentially, what I'm kind of like long-term saying is the fact that I don't understand why Egyptians are having empowerment on trade. There's absolutely no sense in that. For sole reason of the fact that their trade is the same speed as everybody else's. While all their economy is weaker for the other resources, the trade is the same as for everyone else. So therefore they are having instantly 20% more gold from trade for practically like no reason. I guess they thought that if they're gonna be having the dependency on the gold, they need a bit more gold because of that. No, but yeah, that's actually not entirely something that's proven to be true in the late game. Because while in the early game for the Egyptian, the gold dependency is a risk and the way to beat them, in the late game it becomes a massive, I can overstate how massively huge advantage it is for the Aegis to be reliant practically on one resource. And if you're having a secure trade, everybody knows how stupidly annoying it is to kill the Negi. And just like because they're having 20% more gold for not much of a reason, then that's of course what is also making it quite a bit harder. And that is something that, for example, for years, what has been saying even Temista, for example, from even the early stages of Balance Patch, and it's absolutely evident, but never has been there any kind of like air that it to be even remotely passable, because simply Egyptian players are gonna be having none of that, of course. So I'm not really thinking that's gonna be ever passing. That's my pipe dream. But I legitimately think that there's no reasonable reason why they should be having such a strong trade. So either remove empowerment or trade, or lower the base rate of the trade so that they have to be empowering it if they want to be getting it. That might be the better option, to be honest, more in line with the Egyptian overall kind of like civilization. It's not gonna be historical because Egyptians were great traders, but nonetheless, what are we kind of playing here? Age of Mythology, right? Not any kind of history documentary. So yeah, that's something that, in my opinion, something just kind of throwing it out there. I'm throwing it out there for years, but nonetheless, you can write about now flaming me for that kind of wild idea at this point. As otherwise, no, as you already mentioned, I'm thinking that something with the TCs and the empowerment for the Aegis also could be possibly done, because really, there isn't anything more annoying in the late game than successfully killing a TC, finally, especially with Thra, with all the extra nonsensical hit points, and he's gonna be having it immediately in several seconds because he's having plenty of villages farming around it, and he's having a Pharaoh or a priest to empower. Like, yeah. So I'm thinking that really standardization of that maybe could be making good sense. So that it's gonna be on the same level with the TCs. It's an interesting gimmick for the civilization, but it's just gonna create really stupid situations in the game, in my opinion, that are annoying to play against. So just like a random thought, I'm also not thinking that's gonna be ever done. At the minimum, what should be done with the empowerment is that wonders shouldn't be empowerable. The same as Titan Gates aren't. By the way, they used to be in the original game empowerable Titan Gates. And of course that was removed. So for the same thing, it should be removed from wonders. There's like no reason to be having that. They already gonna be usually having easier time to have the resources for the wonder, so no reason to be making them even the first in the race, even if they're gonna be starting second. No, the shades we already talked about. That if you're gonna be having a problem with shades rate, why is, or kind of like with the shades for Hades and the rate of spawn, why isn't in a similar fashion actually tackled maybe Loki or Mercenaries? Because it's very similar mechanism kind of. But nonetheless, Mercenaries we already mentioned. I mean, like, fairly, Mercenaries just like don't have to be in the game at all. And Egyptians should be able to play fine without them. Just like the classic tunnel vision that Egyptian main just can't imagine playing without them. So their whole gameplay includes them, so they can't be playing it. Look at Chrono JJ, right? He just kinda doesn't use them unless there's some kind of rare occasion where he fails in his promise, but nonetheless, you just kinda would be having to play a bit differently and not rely on those. But yeah, that's just like never going to happen. And frankly, it's an interesting gimmick, so just kind of like opening up that mercs could be definitely nerfed way more even than they are. And that's actually something that is a bit weirdly kind of like being silent, because I think that there always were talks that mercenaries could be nerfed more than they were, because they were always under-nerfed because of Eggy players. Of course, not standing for that, so there was always a compromise. And every single time, there was a talk that mercs should be nerfed even more. Currently, that kind of disappeared from the game, interestingly. Even though they are still the same annoying. So, not sure. But nonetheless, much more importantly, I wanted to be maybe talking about Loki here a bit. Because I'm kind of thinking that if people are talking about Loki, they are a bit missing what is the power of him. Oh, kind of, they're not missing it. They're just kind of, I don't know, just like not realizing that aspect that could be touched. And that is the fact that you could be making the spawning slower. That you could be basically like maybe slowing down their gathering of the favor for the myth units that they spawn automatically from the battles. And I'm thinking it might be actually helping in quite a lot of situations, especially in team games. In 1v1, I mean, like, it doesn't have to be some kind of big change, but the point is that if you're gonna be making a small change, in 1v1 it's not gonna be mattering as much, but in team games it's gonna be mounting up, and therefore it's gonna be a bit more significant than otherwise. So it might be typically a change that could actually make somewhat of a sense. So if somebody is gonna be wanting to nerf Loki further, that's where I would be looking into slowing down the spawn rate for the Hersers. That's in my opinion what could be helping a bit, because I don't think there's like anything else you can relevantly touch, probably. That would be making too much of a sense. Ah, come on. Don't go overboard in that, especially Knorrs, I'm talking about you. Otherwise you're gonna be having to get rid of you here. No, nonetheless, otherwise, also another part, and if you are talking about, for example, making Meteor stronger, I'm thinking that Lightning Storm should be made stronger. Because people finally learned that, well, you can kind of hide from that and whatever, and it really doesn't entirely do as much as you'll be always kind of expecting from that. For example, if you, this is kind of funny, if you're gonna be comparing it with, for example, exactly the Implosion, then Implosion usually kills the whole army. Some strongest units are gonna be still kept in the game. But Lightning Storm, that can like lately barely does anything unless you're gonna be getting some good spot and killing also villages. Then it's gonna be fairly underwhelming a lot of the times, because plenty of the late game units are having high pierce resistance. So I'm not entirely certain what to do with Lightning Storm, with like straight increased damage output, or maybe just like partly change the damage into hack. Like half is gonna be pierce, half is gonna be hack, I don't know if that would help in any kind of way. But I'm thinking that Lightning Storm is a bit underwhelming compared to the other god powers, and that's also something that would be probably help maybe Hera be picked a bit more often, because Hera is not a bad goddess, she's having really good things. Hephaestus is simply never gonna be a bad choice in any kind of universe, but Hera is not bad. Athenian Wall is nice, Medusa is pretty cool one-shotter, and actually fairly decent normal unit as well. Then you're gonna be having Monstrous Rage, combined for example with the Medusa, or with previous myth units possibly, or for Titan. That's an insta-win in Titan War by 1000 hit points, or how many? Was it the last time we actually saw it in some games? So yeah. So that's maybe some kind of thing if you are already gonna be buffing some other god powers, like for example the Meteor Storm. Then next, for example, Lampades. That in my opinion is a very interesting unit that maybe could be using a bit of a bump, but at least lately I'm seeing a few more players actually at least testing her out a bit more. Because I mean, like the Chaos, it's not as good as insta-kill, but it's still actually good enough. Because it's still gonna be completely messing up the enemy strong units. The Typicky, the Colosseum, maybe some kind of Heka Gigantes and stuff like that, so I wouldn't be necessarily thinking that Lampades are bad. I'm thinking they are a bit slept upon, maybe they could be needing and could be using bit of a little assistance to make them a bit more interesting, so that we are playing actually Age of Mythology with myth units in general. So that's random. Otherwise, I have right now Locust here. I guess because of some comparisons, but nonetheless, yeah. Locust we talk about commonly, just like nobody knows how to use it for some reason, and since they're gonna be just watching each other using it wrong, then they of course won't improve. But yeah, Locust is quite a bit extremely powerful, but people are using it wrong, the same as Forest Fire, as we already talked about a lot earlier. Allure we already mentioned, that maybe could be having use to look at. If we are already touching Great Hunt, maybe Lure could also decide some kind of, or deserve some kind of small attention, because it is really making Poseidon very much reliable on any kind of map. But not like Poseidon is that much of a problem currently, so for maybe next time when somebody considers Poseidon a problem, then yeah, I'm thinking probably gonna be knowing where to go. And I think it's gonna be probably pretty much what you already talked about and mentioned. Entirely certain if there's something else. Probably, yeah. I'm usually talking about many things during the stream, so really tough to say if there was something more I wanted to be mentioning. But yeah, that's gonna be just like a general idea at this point. And at this point, I'm gonna be trying to kind of like mention the whole process that at this point feels to me a bit weird with this patch, as opposed to the previous one, because I mean, like as I mentioned, the previous ones always were not that they never were easy. It was always like a tough discussion, and of course, like a public reception was always funny. But frankly, this one seems to be a bit extreme. I'm thinking it's, yeah, first inexperience, as we have already talking with Chrono JJ, and therefore not entirely proper thinking about the changes and the consequences, and therefore also understanding what kind of implications it's gonna be for the backlash from other community people and stuff. So I'm thinking it's a bit of a more felt like a dictatorial patch than anything else. But another part is that I'm really kind of feeling long term in the community that plenty things are becoming a bit of a popularity contest. And that really didn't used to be a thing. Even if there were people like Magic, Mista, Joe with massive streams, 150, 200 people plus, it never kind of felt that way as it feels today. That because some people are having viewers, then they think they can actually dictate everything in the community. Or rather this way, that they actually have some kind of mission to do it. It's kind of feeling more that way, right? But yeah, I'm not entirely agreeing with that for obvious reasons, because that kind of approach never leads anywhere good. If you're gonna be trying to usurp things just because you are somehow thinking that you are popular. So I'll be kind of cautious about that, especially if you're gonna be basing it on some kind of audience, and maybe if the audience is not gonna be even kind of like relevant to your game too much. So obviously you're gonna be knowing where all of these are gonna be heading. Maybe you can be even finding yourself there as well, some of you or whatnot. So that's also, I'm thinking, one of the parts that is making this patch a bit weird. That it kind of feels like, and I've already mentioned it before, that it feels like that some personal opinions basically making it in just because they can, instead of being basically like properly thought through and like appreciated what's gonna be the consequence of that. Because I have seen all the previous patch iterations. I haven't seen how they worked on this one, so I can't tell. But on the previous ones, it was always heated debate on all kinds of changes, so it really isn't different. I don't expect it's any kind of different too much in that. But it always was a fairly good compromise, and much more importantly, you kind of understood why things were done and why they were done the way they were. Here, I'm very much struggling with that, as plenty of the things seem to be basically forced in because somebody was having some bad experience and PTSD, and therefore, categorically it needs to be going away, instead of actually thinking of all the consequences and all the things, and other things just gonna seem, I don't know, just like somewhat why, kind of, that it's not entirely necessary, or but at the same time it's not gonna be too bad. Other things are cool, are making sense. But yeah, I'm thinking that it's gonna go in a bit into just like a bit more of a forcing things. Which again, always it has been that way. Like it always has been felt that way. I mean, like remember, for example, the funny 3.0 patch, right? That was supposed to be Magic's. Magic was kind of like leading the team, that he's gonna be making the full balance and blah blah blah. No, well, and then it was released. Everybody was complaining about the same as always, of course. No, and what happened? Suddenly Magic didn't kind of like say that it was his patch, and he was starting to claim that it wasn't his patch at all. So I'm kind of hoping that at least the people here are gonna be kind of standing by it, if they're gonna be really trying to force some of the things, so that we're not gonna be seeing that kind of repeat. But yes, I'll be very much kind of like a lot more careful about how you're gonna be kind of trying to approach things, especially if you have zero experience with how the patches are done. Because even if you're gonna be thinking that, yeah, the previous patches were in the way they were, it was mostly kind of the same team for years, so they were having at least a few iterations, so while they're always complaining and whatnot, there was some kind of continuity. So they were a bit more understanding of compromises and stuff. And of course there was also kind of JJ for a lot of it to be kind of moderating that and cooling the hot heads. And I'm really thinking that something like that is missing a lot here. Like the experience of somebody like Chrono. As I mentioned, think of it what you will, but yeah, I'm having the experience as well. And well, we are having very similar ideas about things with Chrono JJ. And we were surprised about the same things. I mean, like, if you're gonna be in something for 10 years, then you have a certain understanding and certain knowledge about how things are going and how they usually kind of spring up and get made. But yes, unfortunately, of course, Chrono is not wanting to be dealing with that, and I don't want to be stopping anybody from doing things, of course, for the community, but you have a really kind of tall order to follow. And yes, it's gonna be pretty much always thankless, so I mean, like, you probably expected that, of course. But that doesn't mean that you kind of should be just like forcing it in per power, because in the end, that is never kind of like the greatest of ideas. The patches work, because in the end, the changes made sense. I'm kind of thinking that some of them here are at the minimum on teetering on the balance of that. I'm thinking that some are beyond that. So logically, you're gonna be having a bit of a bigger backlash overall because of that. As I'm thinking, this is wild. I was just gonna be going through that again. This is wild change. And just kind of reeks of somebody having a bad experience and just kind of like overreacting and then forcing it in at all cost. The Shockwave is the same situation at all and overall. This is also from just general design perspective, this is worrisome. The others, like, I can see what you were trying to do, but I'm just kind of thinking that things could be done different way. Typically this, I'm thinking, is a bit underestimated. This might not be doing as much as you think. Even though I'm not having a problem with the nerf, because Great Hunt is a frankly busted good power. But it is actually more busted than most of you think, because you are using it wrong. Then, this is just like nonsense. Like, not hurt. No, not hurt. I'm not gonna be doing that because it could hurt. Because this is gonna be making crazier Ragnarok, and that's the only thing it's gonna be helping with. It doesn't do anything with early game at all. Which is what supposedly Anubite recharge time just because of Thor is a bit strange, but alright. I'm a bit worried if maybe it's not gonna be too much, because this is the whole shtick for the Anubites, having this charging and kind of jumping around. Maybe the 10 seconds is not gonna be too much, making them useless. But I guess you can try that, because nobody plays Anubites anyway. That's like one game in a million that you're gonna be actually seeing it done. And otherwise, this one could be maybe actually becoming moot because of what we mentioned. And together with this, I'm kind of a bit worried this is gonna be maybe it's gonna be forcing more of a 2TC meta, because the Greeks are gonna be more motivated rather than raiding, hanging back and making second TCs because of that. I'm kind of hoping not, but it definitely does have that potential of having the effect on psyche of the players. This one is kind of random. I'm not sure what that 50 extra gold for the ECs is gonna be doing, but sure. Like, probably not much of a problem in general, but really not certain if it's gonna be doing anything too much. Definitely don't expect it's gonna be making ECs that much stronger, and therefore that much popular. Frankly, I'm not entirely certain what to do with ECs to make her like more popular than the others. I'm thinking she's already quite good. Just that her most power is in 1TC Fasty Heroic, and that's simply not entirely allowed by the 2TC meta. So, slowing down 2TC meta might be actually exactly what ECs needs for reliving her days of glory past, maybe. This one is of course connected, so yeah, just switching the speed for Prometheans between Kronos and Oranos, I guess. Doesn't entirely mean too much of a problem, and this one is kind of alright. I actually wonder if maybe all the walls could be made a bit more expensive. Because if you're gonna be getting into the very late game, then again, the walls are becoming a bit more of a problem again there. So yeah, I'm thinking that's something that could be probably just made into all the walls, to be honest. I don't think that's much of a problem, because either you're gonna be having only the base wall, or you get all the upgrades. And then you're gonna be going all in. So, yeah, well, maybe just like a beginning of something more here. Sorry, I wasn't entirely paying attention to probably flames on me at this point on the chat, I'm expecting. But yeah. How you can pretend level to increase if people only watch streams and less than 1%? I mean, like, yeah, Mephiston, this is what I was kind of like alluding to. I'm thinking that really the big problem, which is also adding to the tunnel vision, is the fact that the players are reinforcing their own ideas because they are watching each other and thinking that they are playing the best that they are. And not that they are, yes, but that they can, which is probably not right. That is just like straight wrong. They are not playing the best they can. But because they are watching each other on the streams and kind of like supporting each other and whatnot, they basically reinforcing the idea that they are. Which, well, is always a problem in Age of Mythology community, because you don't lose because you are bad or made a mistake, but you lose because the game is broken and opponent's if is OP and crap like that, right? That's always been Age of Mythology and probably always will be. But that's of course the absolute worst way to balance a game and even just like to improve even in the game. So yeah, that might be kind of like the part of the kind of like self-feeding vicious circle. Yeah, certainly true. And the players are just kind of like unwittingly falling prey to it. I mean, like typically the forest fire usage and locust usage, like Jesus Christ, it's not hard to be making it, to use it better. But you simply don't, because you just like always see it with the other player doing the same as you. So you are thinking it's right. And especially the locust is absolutely infuriating to me, that people don't know how to use it. And they completely ignore the possibilities of it, but nonetheless. Same goes for the Great Hunt, that is also not played effectively. And it's actually way stronger god power than even right now the patch creators thing. So this, again, I'm thinking that this theoretically doesn't have to be making too much of a difference in the end. As they think that it can. But at the same time, I'm not against that nerf. That's okay. Just will be doing it differently, as I mentioned, so I'm not gonna be repeating that. I'm already repeating plenty of things here. Anyway, just like don't react to like the trolls, or feel free to ignore me as well if you consider me a troll, I don't care. And if you are thinking that you know better, but yeah, well. I'm kinda not alone in some of the appreciations. There is a lot of nonsense in there. I'm just kind of looking if there are some kind of bits and pieces that are gonna be worthwhile to pick up. And also right now talk about, or if I'm gonna be having some thought that I would be wanting to add. I'm just kind of hoping that if you're gonna be wanting to maybe continue with some further patches though with Retold coming, I guess it's a one-off, that you'll be simply getting more experience as time goes. Because, well, yeah, you can be thinking what you want of it, but we kind of both feel it with Chrono JJ that this is not entirely having kind of like the experience back in that it needs to be having with appreciating some of the things. But yeah, if you will be annoying Chrono JJ enough to be giving his opinions, he is definitely the best person to ask. You could be asking me, but if you're gonna be asking Chrono JJ, you're definitely gonna be getting better conversation because I'm way too opinionated. And while we have a generally similar outlook with Chrono, he's gonna be much more kinder and nicer to talk to. So yes, he's absolutely the person to approach about everything. So sorry, Chrono JJ, if I'm gonna be causing your DMs to be filled at this point. And again, just like plenty of the things, in my opinion, could have been handled differently. Some of them not at all, but yeah, would be definitely, what I would be absolutely appreciating is every single change with deep down dive, what was going on and why it was decided that way. Because I'm having strong problems with some of them, how they could have even come into being, somehow very strange and outworldish. And otherwise, how you kind of like agree that it's the way to do it. And maybe if you had some different ideas how to maybe tackle it, if maybe those wouldn't be slightly better. Because again, I'm just gonna be repeating again for everybody to hear. If you want to be doing something with Oranos, it 100% needs to be the speed. Because that is behind all the problems. Oranos is better because of the speed, nothing else. Everything else is inconsequential, is second rate. It's just the speed is the biggest problem. I mean, like, who was here a month ago when I was arguing with Kimo after his match in Divine Intervention versus Shelty, in that last game where it was the Kronos versus Thor, Shelty completely owned him, and Kimo was claiming that all he needed was being Oranos and he would win. And he was basing the whole argument on the speed of the units. So even, for example, somebody like Kimo is understand the importance of the speed in there. And it really is important. I wasn't agreeing with him that he would be winning. I'm still would be thinking that Shelty would win because he was playing really incredibly sharp that day. And he was having good map for him and everything was going in his favor. He was playing it also very well, which then got confirmed when Shelty won again and he won the tournament overall. So I kind of guess we probably know who was right there. If I'm gonna be so prideful and everything and nasty as that. But yes, that's what you need to be doing with Oranos. Same as with the second thesis, I'm thinking it's not entirely too hard. At least at minimum to try it. I'm thinking it is something that could be making good sense. Otherwise, we have talked about everything, I guess. Unless I find something into the chat, it's probably gonna be it. Not sure if I'm gonna be trying to put some points into also RTS Sanctuary like into chat, because I don't expect anybody is gonna be watching this video, even if I put it on YouTube. But we're just gonna give some kind of things there. But yes, one of the like bigger gripes I have in the community lately is that feels to me that plenty of that is becoming a bit more of a streamer culture than it needs to be and that it even should be. That's simply people, because they have viewers, they cannot think that they have more important opinion, and that is definitely not true. Which is kind of really, again, in the past you were having big streamers bigger than today, frankly. Magic was always having bigger viewers than anybody even today. Frankly, those few years back, Joe was always having double the viewers of today's Rappel or Super. And it never was that way actually back then. Maybe with Magic, but he was always curtailed by the others, even though he was doing his best to always curb the nerves onto Aegis. But it just like never was that way too much. But lately, it unfortunately feels that way to me, personally. It's my stupid personal idea. Feel free to disregard. So I'll be kind of liking if maybe kind of people appreciate it a bit more, the general community, rather than kind of thinking that streams are what is at this point keeping all this going. Oh, well, the forward gold mines, it's also kind of a lot of talk, especially by Egyptians. Egyptians very much hate the forward gold mines. I kind of don't agree with that. I'm thinking that the maps need to be a bit more varied. So therefore, different positions of the gold mines, different versions of the maps. Yeah, that's maybe actually something I maybe could be even mentioning here at the end. And that is something I'll talk about on streams as well. That while there is some kind of weird kind of move to maybe standardize maps a lot more, like removing, for example, back TC savannas and stuff, I'm actually thinking it should be going exactly in the opposite way, exactly because of the asymmetric design, so that you are going to be having maps that are going to be better for others and for different gods, because you already have that. Typical like Anatolia, Midgard, right, and stuff. If you're going to be having marsh, tundra, it's just like favorable for different gods. So why the hell would you be just kind of wanting to select some kind of specific maps that you want to remove and leave the other ones? They are going to be favoring usually your gods. So there's a bit of a bias in there, certainly. But I will be going all the way into maps without any hunt. For example, I'll be going for such maps. I'll be going maps with maybe like 1 extra TC per player or 3 extra TCs per player. Just going that way. Having a map with maybe 1 extra gold mine, or rather more maps with only 2 extra gold mines. Like, for example, Ghost Lake can be. I'm thinking those would be very interesting to have, because it would be forcing a different play, because you can't be turtling as much with that, because the long game is gonna be more difficult. But yes, just like forcing different style, because that's also the best way how to learn what is actually really broken or isn't, because it's gonna be forcing the players into different styles. Unless they're gonna be falling back to their complaining selves, and yeah, well, they can't be losing because of themselves, but it has to be the game. That's kind of like what I'm hoping is gonna be the biggest effect of the patch. Like, jolt into the player base, and that they're gonna be trying, because of the changes, playing differently. Even if maybe there's not gonna be a kind of real reason for that, because the changes not being important enough. Because frankly, most of them aren't. The only change that's gonna be changing meta is legitimately gonna be Shockwave. I think that all the rest are not gonna be changing practically anything. It's gonna be all pretty much the same. Maximum, we're gonna be seeing a bit more 2TCs here, with probably Greeks, or maybe in general. But that's kind of like the only thing I'm thinking is gonna change. Otherwise, the gods are gonna be played very similarly, in my opinion. So yeah, that's also part of it all. Yeah, Krana's gonna dominate. That'll be kind of fun. At least I'm very happy about the Gold Rush being added. That's a very solid map. I really liked it. During the Voobly Championship, that's a very solid map. Happy for that one. So just kind of waiting for all the complaints, especially I'm thinking by Aegis. Because I don't remember a single Egyptian being played on that back then, by the way. So that's probably gonna be fun. Creator of the mess will be Rebels Rising. There were some kind of weird hints here and there, but yeah, some rumors, let's say, about him, but nonetheless, doesn't seem like available currently, unfortunately. No, nonetheless, as I'm gonna be right now going through the chat, that's a lot of spam here, then I'm guessing that's gonna be probably pretty much done for this topic. And I guess, well, maybe gonna be doing like 1 game at the end, even though it's already quite a bit long. So sorry if I should have been banning somebody here, but yeah, well, I was a bit more concerned by thinking about how to maybe make myself a bit understood. I mean, like, Joe was beating all Norse with Anubites. No, maybe... That's kind of actually a bit funny, because you're gonna be talking about the point of the game where Joe was the best player around. So, wasn't it maybe because he was simply good? Wild thought, isn't it? I mean, like, when Joe was active and he was kind of like playing with the Anubites and whatnot, he was winning tournaments left and right. Or being basically in the latest stages regularly. So I'm not entirely certain if it's that much correct to be nerfing that just because of him. So I'll be kind of careful about that kind of line of thinking. Because again, it's not that much of a strat lately. Now it's gonna be probably quite a lot less. If not even non-existent. Nah, nobody will leave. Just kind of like question is if it's gonna be adopted, because that's always with every new patch. If people are gonna be there for playing on that or not. It's like easy thing really. The gold mines, the forward one, I guess we already talked about. So yeah, I'm already at now some 7 minutes in the past. You are talking a lot today. Yeah, the forward gold mines, in my opinion, are not an issue. That's just like really only Egyptians, and I don't see that as a problem really. It's like you can't be having always a safe gold mine like it was, what is it, patch 4.0 I think it was, where you having the extremely safe gold mines. Yeah, that was hell. And that was the reason that was removed, of course. But some people will be like in that back. Guess which ones. So yeah, I don't think that's a problem really. The back DCs in general. Or the gold mines. Just once it's gonna be forward, otherwise not. No, nonetheless, we are at the end at this point. So, that was a lot longer than I thought it's going to be. But yeah, well, that's usually with me. I can't entirely keep concise too much. No, but the problem is, you won't save gold mine. As long as it's not forward, it's already basically safe for the Egyptians. So yeah, that's the problem, kind of. That it's either gonna be too much forward or too much backward. There's no middle way in there with the gold mines. That is like the general problem. It's either already good or it's bad. Isis can't fight classical versus Greek or fight Aura Spam, really? I mean, like, Isis wasn't really nerfed in any kind of significant way. And I don't remember Themista beating Magic with Athena rushes too much. I mean, like, it was definitely a bit more in favor of Magic in those olden times. So I'm not entirely certain what you are exactly talking about here. And I don't think there's too much of a difference to the matchup now as far as Athena goes. Actually, you could be thinking that Athena is actually weaker because you have weaker restoration. Like 2 seconds shorter or how much, right? No, nonetheless, we have gone right now through all of this, so yeah, so if it was maybe boring, uninteresting or whatnot, but I wanted to be looking at that as well myself and share some kind of opinions on that, and we'll see if maybe something is gonna be moving forward somewhere or whatnot, but yeah, well, probably wouldn't be expecting it too much, so I guess you're gonna be there for seeing if it's gonna be having some wanted effects or not. So I guess, of course, thanks for the patch team and to the patch team that they are kind of trying to make the effort with already, of course, in about half a year. Yeah, I'm thinking that this is probably unfortunately gonna be obsolete. and therefore you're gonna be probably playing something else, it looks like. If it's gonna be whatever, if it's gonna be something close to AOM, or if it's gonna be Age of Legends or anything along those lines. Well, we'll see maybe what the next half year is gonna be bringing therefore regarding this. It's probably not gonna be going anywhere too much. Or well, otherwise the community could be also saying that they're gonna be staying on 5-0, and that could actually easily happen as well, as it always is an uncertainty with the patches and always has been. So yeah, these are my random ideas, maybe some kind of suggestions, bit of a discussion also with a few people in the chat. And well, that's gonna be it, I guess, for looking at what the patch changes are currently and what they are gonna be there for bringing to the game. Like regarding the match, the bigger problem I'm considering is that you can't be basically making sure that both players are gonna be having either forward or back gold mine. That you can't be basically making sure that it's gonna be same for both, because the scripting just doesn't allow that with how it works. You just can set distance, but you can't be setting where it's gonna be spawning. Into what like direction. That's something you can't be doing anything with. I mean, like, at this point, if you're gonna be having tower bind, or the bounce to tower, sorry, gold bound to tower, then it's always a safe gold. Like, you just as well can be spawning the gold mine as a Thor next to the TC and it's the same. So yeah, that's exactly the point where it shouldn't be.